we're just doing candids of the whole event.
Speakers,
Everything.
Yeah.
There you go.
Reactions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everything that you can
Yeah.
capture.
Got it.
Everything, and maybe you go and to the table first and
Okay.
take a picture
I
of
have one.
that so that they, just little things like
Yeah.
that. The Moms for America table.
Absolutely.
And Julene and Jenny
Julene and
are,
Jenny.
they're the two from corporate.
Okay.
I think Julene's wearing red. I don't know
Okay.
where she is right now. Is she at the table? I think she is. Anyway.
I can ask.
Yeah, but getting a good picture of that, maybe of the
Okay.
sign that,
Yeah. Any of the
and the
details
vendors
up
so
there.
that they
Okay.
see who all was here.
Perfect.
That helps.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I better turn this off.
All right. Well, Lord God, we just thank you that you are so present. Thank you, Holy Spirit. God, I thank you for every person that is here, for the word of truth that is going to go forth. We just welcome your Holy Spirit to be manifest in this place, that you will be glorified as your warriors, as your army is raised up for righteousness and truth today. Thank you, Jesus. Amen. All right. These things are so old. I bought them on a missions trip in Bulgaria
Bulgaria?
when Asher was a baby.
Love it. Love it. Oh my
Yep,
gosh.
they're my Bulgarian
Okay.
shoes.
Where do you want me here?
Right here, right beside me. Or here, that's where
I don't care where I am.
Lisa
I just
had you
wanna-
here if you prefer to be on the end.
I don't care. I just right.
Okay. That sweater that's under your butt is Asher's.
You're about to start rolling it now.
Yep.
Okay.
What was that link? Who do you need? What was that link again? Link for what? Oh, I need to do all of that. So if you are you wanting Facebook or YouTube? It doesn't matter. YouTube's fine. So Patriotic Students of America has a little eagle. Okay. It's gonna look like this. Oh, okay.
We've got some guys too. We've got a lot of dads. Yeah.
For America or of America? Patriotic Students of America, Moms for America Summit.
Oh, so how am I going to do this? I got to link my live stream to
Brian is the guy with the purple, right?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. All right, so how do I know? Something's not right. I did the post. No.
Well, I'm glad you could have.
Oh.
Who knows? I'm so glad we're here. Okay. Amazing. Thank you. I will. I'm Brittany. So nice to meet you, Ann.
You're with,
I'm at Moms for Liberty from Union County, North Carolina.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Neighbor.
A neighbor, I know. I frequently wish I was in South Carolina these days.
Yeah.
If I put it on airplane mode, it won't share it, will it?
If you've already shared it,
Yeah.
you should
Well, I was going to put it so it wouldn't ring, but.
put it on.
Okay.
Pull it down.
Yeah, it's good. So.
Let's see what else Star-spangled banners
However you like, you want to kind of angle yourself.
see
Check, check.
Okay. Good morning, courageous moms of the Carolinas. How are you? We are so glad that you're here. I'm Donica Hudson, and I'm a mom of 3 from North Carolina.
I am Dr. Elizabeth Enns, and I am a mom of 3 from South Carolina. I'm also one of the senior pastors here at Antioch International Church, and we are so glad that you are here with us today to look at what's happening in our nation, to look at what's happening right here in our states and in our communities, and to have solutions of what we can do about it. So we're so glad that you're here for this and ready to be part of the solutions for our nation. A few housekeeping items. If you are new to this building, the restrooms, which is important, are right through that double door right there if you need that. And there are ushers around if you look a little lost and need some help, that people will come and help you. And also we have booths set up at the back of the room for the different groups that are here and ministries that are here to just kind of tell you more than what is able to be covered while we're speaking today.
Yes, so all the vendor tables are at the back. Please feel free to go and visit them whenever you have an opportunity. Our founder for Moms for America, Kimberly Fletcher, is actually sick with COVID. So if you would keep her in your prayers. Kimberly asked that Elizabeth and I, we're the co-host of the event, and I am so grateful to her family, Dr. Elizabeth, Pastor Jesse, Pastor Peter Wins and his wife Joy Wins, who did a fabulous dinner for some of the speakers last night that were in this area. We are so grateful that you would open this house to us. It is beautiful, and we don't take that for granted. We're thankful to have pastors in America like you. Thank you. Yes, please do clap for them. So our founder, Kimberly Fletcher, asked us to tell you why we do what we do. Because it's not easy. We don't get paid. Nobody's going to take an offering. We're not trying to make any money doing this. We are trying to empower you. And my goal is that every mom that comes in here leaves with the resources that you need to fight the battles in your schools and your communities so that you can make a difference, so that you can stand up. And so we're linking together. We're not competing with other moms groups. In fact, we're linking arms, like with Moms for Liberty. We are linking arms because we're better together. And there's power in numbers. My foray into this kind of standing up to fight for my kids came back in 2015 with Charlotte's infamous bathroom bill. Have you heard of it? Okay. So what happened was when our children were forced to share bathrooms, locker rooms, and showers with members of the opposite biological sex, and that was about to go into effect, my daughter, who's actually going to be singing tonight, Salem, encountered a man in the women's restroom in the grocery store. And so at that point, the mama bear rose up in me, and I thought, am I going to sit here and take this? Or am I going to watch my children's schools be infiltrated with nonsense like this, where it's us who suffer when Title IX already provided for extra facilities and accommodations like bathrooms and showers for people who don't identify as their born sex, okay? So at that point is when I joined in, and my husband and I sued the federal government. We teamed up with Alliance Defending Freedom. Tanya Shellnut, are you here? Tanya is one of our speakers, and she represents Alliance Defending Freedom. So we're trying to give you every resource that you need. If you're encountering issues like this, whatever is happening, feel free to visit her table back at ADF. So the point here is that we be able to have a voice together to stand up for righteousness in our land so that our children are protected. We're not vindictive. We are armed with information, and we intend to arm you with the information you need to stand up for the laws in America and to do what's right for your children. So that's what brought me to this place. And I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth because she's done some amazing things too. She has actually written, and she'll talk about this later, but she's written a Patriotic Students of America K through 12 curriculum. And if you want to live stream that and link your Facebook page to it, you can go to Patriotic Students of America on Facebook right now and share that live stream if you want other moms that could not be here in person to be able to see and be empowered through the speakers today. I also wrote a book called Pray America Great because I realized that it was actually a mandate from God, but I realized that if we don't also pray when we take action, we're not going to be very effective. We've got to do both. So if you ever want any guidance in prayer, you could go back to my table back there. It is on constitutional prayer, where we understand that the civil covenants that our founding fathers made are actually stored in heaven, so that when we pray in agreement with those prayers of all 50 state constitutions, the nation's constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Mayflower Compact, the Jamestown land dedication, all of these are covenants, civil covenants that call upon God to bless our land. And when we pray those, God ushers in a force of covenant in history to preserve our land, to preserve our schools. So it's very effective to pray that way, and that'll help you too as a resource. Elizabeth?
At this time, we have so much more to share with you, and we will get into that. But we would like to call the father of this house, Dr. Peter Wins, who is also my beloved dad, to come and open us in prayer.
Thank you. Welcome. Let me see you smile. I know you're in a big fight. Fight for the nation, fight for your lives, fight for your children, but you should be smiling the whole time, because the victory belongs to you.
Amen. Yeah.
It is. Right will always prevail, even though you go through the battles. When the media twists and hides the truth, and schools rewrite history and refuse patriotism, and when high tech shuts you down, and a commander-in-chief promotes anti-biblical values, I am glad that moms and families of America say we're not going along with the maddening crowd. And praise God. And it's high time that you have conferences like this, and we're honored to have you here. It's high time we shout it from the rooftops, in the public square, and in every place, at school board meetings, and wherever you can get a place to take a stand and put your feet down, open your mouth and proclaim life and liberty, patriotism, and the pursuit of happiness. You know, we have a commander-in-chief who's greater than any commander-in-chief or any politician or any person or any group or any party in the United States of America. Let's go to him in prayer right now, shall we? Heavenly Father, we thank you that this nation belongs to you, that you are the one who founded it, and you founded it to be a city set upon a hill for the nations of the world. Lord, we come into agreement with the great plans of God for this nation, and we speak the blessings of the Lord, God Almighty, over every person who participates in this conference today. Lord, we ask that the truth would ring loudly, and it would go on the airwaves and go across this nation and around the world. We lift up the banner for righteousness and goodness, and we give you thanks for strength, for vigilance, and for your protection and your agenda that goes before us. We receive your blessings now for all that takes place this day in this house. We speak it forth in faith in Jesus' name. Amen.
Is this thing? Okay. If you'll stand for the Pledge
Good
of
afternoon.
Allegiance.
I'm Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evett of the great state of South Carolina. I wish I could be with you in
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evett of the great state of South Carolina. I wish I could be with you in person, but please know I am with you in spirit. From owning a business to serving our state, the greatest privilege that God has blessed me with is being a mother to my 3 amazing children, Amanda, Joey, and Jackson. It's exciting and encouraging to see mothers uniting across our great nation to promote truth, freedom, and common sense in our homes and communities. As Mother Teresa said, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. Families are the backbone of South Carolina. The governor and I will always fight for the unborn, the right to worship freely, and stand against big government and big tech. Government bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. will never be able to replace the role of parents. We must fight back against the evils of critical race theory and ensure that our children are taught Judeo-Christian and patriotic values in school. Thank you, Moms for America, for the important work you are doing that will have generational impact on our children and grandchildren.
We are so honored that you are here, and we would like for you to stand and join us for the singing of the national anthem. There is such a power that's released when our voices come together in unity for God and unity for our nation. And so we would like for you to sing with us. You may be seated. This one works.
Thank you, sweetie. All right. Thank you. The worship, the music was fantastic. I love a good patriotic song, you know. We don't get to do those enough. I am very grateful that Julene Jackson and Jenny Hedge came from the corporate side of Moms for America to fill in Kimberly's absence. And Julene is just spectacular. She's going to be speaking next. And Julene heads up the Signature Cottage meetings that she'll tell you more about that are empowering women all over America. And so I wanted to tell you about the mission of Moms for America. I've actually spoken with Moms for America 3 times in Washington. We even rallied at the confirmation for Amy Coney Barrett. We've spoken before elections on many, many policy issues standing for righteousness in our country. And the mission of Moms for America is to build a foundation of liberty in the homes of America through the mothers of America to raise a new generation of patriots and heal our nation from the inside out. The vision is to create a national movement of moms to restore the republic, promote the principles of liberty, and reclaim our culture for truth, family, freedom, and our U.S. Constitution. With that, I would like to ask Julene Jackson to come up and share. She is the Vice President of Moms for America. Videos next? Okay, sorry. We're rolling with it. Go ahead.
The hand that rocks the cradle isn't just a cute little saying, it's an immortalized fact. The mothers of a nation mold its citizens, develop its character, shape its destiny. The great and noble characters who left their immortal imprint on our nation's history were not fashioned on battlefields or in palaces, but in the cradle and at the fireside. Home is where liberty begins. We cannot expect to have a nation of patriots who love liberty and respect the Constitution if we are not raising these patriots in our homes. While others will try to convince us that the most important things we can do to save America and preserve liberty are outside our homes, we know it is what we do inside our home that has the greatest influence on our nation. The greatest act of patriotism a mother can ever perform will be within the walls of her own home. We don't need more government. We need more women of virtue, women of faith who will cultivate a foundation of faith in the hearts of her children, women of courage who will be ambassadors of truth, who will defend and protect the family at all cost. We need women infused with patriotism who will teach and nurture the principles of liberty and virtue our nation was founded on. Women who will foster a deep love and respect for our beloved America and all she stands for. We need an army of mothers who will raise a nation of patriots. That is how we will save our beloved America, by growing stronger citizens, citizens who cannot be oppressed, who are capable of facing tough challenges, citizens who are still in love with liberty, know its cost, and are willing to pay the price. America will stand because America is bigger than a government. It is American families united in purpose, filled with the spirit of freedom. It is the spirit of the people that makes America free. The plane full of patriots that went down in a Pennsylvania field. The firefighters who walked into a crumbling building when everyone else was running out. The men and women sleeping in tents in 100-degree heat in Iraq and Afghanistan. It is the mothers teaching their children, the small business owners fighting for their dream, and the children who place their hands over their hearts to pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Liberty begins at home, and there's no place like home to restore hope in America. As mothers, we have a divine inherent right to protect, nurture, and secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our children. Hope for America is reflected in our vision of the future. You and I, we hold the keys. We are the keepers of the flame. We must do everything in our power to pass on that flame, make sure it burns bright, and that it continues to be a light on the hill and a beacon of hope to the world. We are the hope of America. We are the last line of defense between freedom and servitude. What we know and what we nurture in the hearts of our children will literally determine the fate of the free world. We can no longer stand on the sidelines. The future of America is in our hands. There is hope for America, and it is you.
Welcome, beautiful mamas and grandmothers. I even see some dads and grandpas out there as well. Thank you so much for coming today. And thank you for this lovely Antioch Church, International Church, Pastor Peter and Joy Wins for allowing us to be here today, and Donica and Pastor Liz. I am Julene Jackson, the National Vice President for Moms for America, an organization that believes that liberty begins at home because there is no other place like home to restore hope in America. What we do there will have the greatest influence on our nation. I'm a wife and a mother of 7 children. 2 little sons died in infancy, but we have 5 very wild and alive children here on earth, ranging from age 26 on down to 13. We live in Washington, D.C., a suburb of the D.C. area, about 15 minutes from the White House. We have a married daughter, a son who is a professional athlete, another daughter who is a senior in college, another son who is a senior in high school, and our baby who is in 8th grade. So I understand full well that fierce mother bear intuition that rises up in us when we feel the future of our children are at stake. This afternoon, I want to share with you about a program that we have at Moms for America. It's our signature program, the Cottage Meeting. What is it? What is its impact? It has been said that 10 small discussion groups in the community will do more to create a new way of life than 100 mass meetings with 1,000 in attendance at each. I have seen this firsthand in my life as I have attended or taught cottage meetings for the last 13 years. Now, a cottage meeting is like a study group, a discussion group. It's like a Bible study, but we're studying liberty. And it's where mothers come together to learn from each other, to share experiences. We laugh, we cry, we pray. The Spirit of God is always there. Cottage meetings transformed me as a mother. It changed my marriage. It changed the way that I began to teach my children. It even impacted my community and state and even the nation in ways that I would have never imagined. So mamas, we are looking for solutions, and we understand the best way to heal the nation is to start by healing our homes. When mother learns the stories and Miracles of America. It's the most natural thing in the world for her than to go home and teach those that she loves. And that's exactly what I did when I began to attend cottage meetings 13 years ago. We had at that time 5 children. We were living in Hood River, Oregon on the Columbia Gorge, kind of a small liberal town. And we had the high schooler on down to the babe, I think, who was on the breast kind of thing. And I was getting very worried. I had a lot going on. I was getting worried what my high schooler and my middle school children were being taught. We had an aggressive sex education curriculum. And in their history classes, they were talking about this idea of a global citizenship and the deviancy of our founders in capitalism. So there was a mom in town one day watching a man by the name of Glenn Beck, his program. I didn't even know who Glenn Beck was at that time. And he held up this book, The 5,000-Year Leap, on TV. And he said, mothers, you need to start book groups and study these 28 principles of liberty that change the world and then teach them to your children. So that's what one of the mamas did. She started a book group, and about 6 of us showed up. And we began to meet once a month for about 2 hours, and we would take a couple principles each time we met, and we just kind of teach each other. I mean, we weren't constitutional scholars or historians, but we did love God, and we were worried about our children, and so we had a great start. And inevitably, we went home and we began to teach these things that we were learning to our children. Some taught them at the dinner table. Some taught them as they would get them off to bed at night. I began to weave in these principles and stories into a little morning devotional that we had in our home, where we would gather the kids together before school and we would study a little bit out of the Bible, and we'd, memorize a little poem and sing a gospel and pray and get them off. And that is what I saw my mama do in my home. So it was kind of a natural thing. That's how I taught my children and my husband and I in this morning devotional. So as I began to weave in these principles of liberty, I know my husband initially thought he was losing me. I was going to be a right-wing nut or something like that. But what happened is we all began to learn together these stories and these miracles. And he would go on to say it was what we learned together as a family in our little family devotional. That would be the means of sparking something in his heart. And a few years later, he would run for the state senate and win. And he gives credit to what I learned in my cottage meeting, brought home and taught my children, and changed him. And now we do this great work together. When we moved to Utah, I started a cottage meeting there in my new neighborhood. And those women, 10 years later, are still meeting every Wednesday morning, 9:30 to 11:30. And those ladies call themselves the Sisters of Liberty. I mean, if you have to start a group, you might as well give yourself a cool name. It has changed their lives. If I could tell you what those mamas have gone on to do and grandmothers, they have had radio shows, they've written books, they've brought their kids home and homeschooled, they've run for office, they've held office, they've been community leaders. They are a force to be reckoned with in their community. But what is most remarkable after 10 years is what their children and their grandchildren are going on to do, because their mothers love God and love freedom. Their children and grandchildren now know. Kimberly Fletcher, who you just saw a moment ago in the video, is the president of Moms for America, and she somehow found me years ago, and she said, Jolene, would you sit on our board for Moms for America and help oversee these cottage meetings around the country? And because she had heard of what I was doing in my community. And I did what all of us mamas do when someone asks us to take on one more assignment. Oh, thank you very much, but I'm just too busy. But as she continued to speak, God pricked my heart, because I knew what she was trying to do around the country was having such an impact in my home and in my community. And so I agreed, and God expanded my capacity to do one more thing. And since then, I've been involved with Moms for America for 10 years. And it is my privilege now to teach weekly online cottage meetings. During COVID, we went online and we taught all 12 of the introductory lessons in this cottage meeting manual. There are 12 lessons here. And the manual teaches you step by step how to start a cottage meeting. You can meet in your home, you can rotate through the women in your group, you can meet in a church, you can meet in the park, you can meet once a month, you can meet every other week or once a week, whatever the need is of your group. I even have a monthly, once a month online training cottage session where we meet the first Tuesday of every month, where me and a member of our staff go online and we answer any question you have about the cottage meetings. I'll be teaching, it's the fall, so we're starting our new fall session. I'll be teaching a new online class of these 12 introductory lessons starting October 6th. It's Wednesday, it's 1 hour, it's free. Just go to momsforamerica.net. I think you might have all got a postcard here. If you just put your phone and scan it over the little QR code, it'll take you right to our website. Go to cottage meetings, scroll down to the virtual cottage meetings, sign up now. You'll get a Zoom link each week, and you can watch and participate from anywhere. It's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday, starting October 6th. Moms from all over the country hop on that online class. It will empower you, I promise you. You will love it as you get to know these mamas all across America that feel just the same way you do. And if you miss a live session, we record them all and you can just watch them later. The first lesson is entitled Anchored in Hope. The second lesson is There's No Place Like Home. The third lesson is Ladies First. You educate the woman, the man will be educated. Then we teach lessons 4, 5, and 6 on how to teach your children the foundation of faith, the valor of virtue, the power of patriotism. We have a lesson called America Share the Story. Now, this resource guide has the lessons, and it's chock full of resources, of other books you can use to teach your children, your teenagers, your adult children, your grandchildren. It has quotes, it has Bible verses, it has links and great stories. You know, I have adult children now. Our oldest is 26, 23, 21, 18, and 14. The old adult kids, 3 of my 5 are out of the home now, and they have come back to me and they've said, those stories have really impacted our lives, Mom. Our 26-year-old a few years ago served a church mission on the Amazon River, teaching the gospel of Jesus Christ to the impoverished people in Peru. And she said there were so many times she did that for 18 months that she just thought, what am I doing here? This is hard, I want to come home. And she said, but Mom, I remembered in our family devotional about once a week, you and Dad would point to the picture of Mount Vernon on our mantle and tell the story of George Washington and how he led that miserable 8-year Revolutionary War and served another 8 years as the president. And he longed for the ease of the way of life on the Potomac at his beloved Mount Vernon, but he knew that God had called him to this work, and so he stayed the course, and because of it, it made all the difference. And she said, somehow that story rose up in me, and I knew that if I would stay the course in my church service, my mission, that somehow it might make the difference to someone here in Peru, and mostly it made the difference to that girl because she came home and is doing great things right now. We have a son who is 23, he's in the NBA, and he'll say, Mom, it was all those stories you told in the morning devotional about our founding fathers praying that caused him to be a praying son, a praying boy, he'll say. He remembers that story of George Washington going in Valley Forge to the woods to pray when it was the bleakest time during the Revolutionary War. His officers were deserting him, the soldiers were deserting him, and he had nowhere else to go but to his knees. And Frankie said, I'll never forget my first year at Duke. He played for Duke University, and we were going to play the University of North Carolina. And I learned that millions of people were going to be watching this on TV, let alone camera, and indoors was, I guess, packed. And he said, I got on my knees in my Duke dorm room, and I just asked God to help me to play the way I knew I could, the way I hoped to. And then he would go on to tell me once he was drafted into the NBA, how many times he dropped to his knees in the dirty bathroom stalls of some of the greatest basketball arenas in the country before, as a rookie, going to play for the first time up against the likes of a LeBron James or a Steph Curry or a Harden or whoever all those big, ginormous guys are. But you know, stories teach your children what faith looks like. Stories teach your children what courage and what patriotism looks like. We have another lesson on the importance of the dinner hour, eating together as a family. We have a lesson on capture the sunshine, how to teach your children through music, art, poetry, and literature. We have a lesson on the wheat and the chaff, how to teach your children the Constitution, break it down. What does that mean for them? We have a lesson on the law of harvest, how to teach your children to be self-reliant to love to work. And then lastly, how do we raise up this next generation of patriots? When mamas finish these 12 lessons, they now understand why they will be the best teacher their children will ever have, why they are the most qualified to teach them the most important things that will arm them up as they go out in the world and begin to fight their battles that are surely going to be ahead of them. So you can take these classes online from me, or you can just form your own little group in your neighborhoods. We also teach an online class on Thursdays with my husband. Now, how fun is that, to teach liberty and freedom with your man? It's kind of a different dynamic when I have my man next to me. And so we teach those on Thursday nights at 8:30 Central Standard Time. They're just an hour, they're free. momsforamerica.us, just sign up and the Zoom link will come to you. And we have husbands and wives and even children sit in on those Thursday classes. And we teach 4 seminars, and each seminar lasts for 1 week, or for 1 month, so it's a 16-week seminar. But that is really where I learned the bedrock of American history and what the Constitution was. The first seminar, we talk about God's hand in establishing America, how he used little Joan of Arc. We tell this story. Did you know she was instrumental in America coming to pass? And we talk about the real story of Christopher Columbus and how he was inspired by God. And then the Pilgrims and our founding fathers, and we teach the miracles of America. And if God is a God of miracles back then, don't you think he is still a God of miracles today? And you begin to realize that. And then we learn the Constitution from the viewpoint of the founding fathers. They said this inspired document was struck off by the hand of God. It's there when I first took these Healing of America seminars all those years ago, I learned, oh, there's actually 7 articles in the Constitution and 27 amendments, and the Constitution was written to protect families, and how is that? I learned that. I didn't understand any of that. And then the third seminar, we talk about how in the world did we get in the position that we are now. We almost feels like our country is becoming unhinged. Well, it's because there were systematic attacks on religion, on schools, on mothers. Did you know that? By these master planners who wanted to fundamentally change America. Carnegie, Rothschild, J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller. And then we even talk about some modern day master planners, Soros, Gates. I mean, I can name a few that you all know, but we are being moved towards a one world order, and it is real. And then I love the 4th seminar, because at this point I'm about ready to go to the closet with a gallon of ice cream. But the 4th seminar, we learn about what we can do to heal ourselves, our families, our communities, our schools, our state, our Constitution, and the nation. We learn solutions and how to be a part of it. And it is such a joy to come together and learn with these mothers and families all over America who are anxiously engaged in their homes and communities to make a difference. Now, thousands of mamas over the last year have participated in these online cottage meetings. Every week they come online and they stay afterwards, after the hour class, and they want to share. They want to talk about what they're doing in their communities and the changes that are coming into their life because of the knowledge that they are gaining. And these mamas who have started, they usually start out doing the online class, and then they want to start their own little cottage meetings in their neighborhoods. Sam from Pennsylvania just reported she won her school board. She won the primary, and she is set to win the election. She said it's looking very good. This was just a mama that we were learning together online. A vet from South Carolina is involved in the election board. She talked about that a few weeks ago. Misha from Georgia is reading the 5,000-Year Leap book with her social group now in the once a month. Glory and so many mamas want to talk about how they're starting to incorporate these stories and teachings in their little family and their devotionals, or having movie nights to learn about history and the founding fathers with their children. Tyler, there's a great mom from Loudoun County, Virginia, that have rallies a few times a month against this critical race theory to put their school boards on notice that they're not happy and they're not going to take it. And Cherie said that her cottage meeting recently went and testified before the school board about the critical race theory and the mask mandates and some mandatory testing that's going on in schools in some of the areas. And one little mom from outside Chicago a few days ago said her husband is a mayor of a town outside of Chicago, and because of what she's learned in the cottage meetings, he now has instituted the pledge back into the city council meetings.
Oh, wow.
And so I hear every week things that are happening with these mamas that are learning these principles of liberty and freedom, and it is empowering and it is magnificent to behold. We also have a group for Moms for America called Moms Force, where we help mamas to know what their parental rights are and their children's rights are in school, and how to take back that school board. And we're providing opportunities to network with other mothers in their areas. We provide a resource bank to equip them with training and mentor moms to mentor them up. Just go to momsforamerica.us, go to the school board page, and someone will reach out to you if you're interested in that kind of information. So mothers and fathers, if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. And that is what we're doing today. We're challenging mamas to rise up, to gather together, to learn, to study online, study in your homes, and then go home and teach these things to your children, to your husband, to your grandchildren, and out in your communities, in your neighborhoods. Alex de Tocqueville, the great author of Democracy in America, said, "Women in their circle of influence, starting within their home, can turn the world around." Mothers, you are the key. You are God's secret weapon. When a wrong needs righting, or a truth needs preaching, or a continent needs opening, or a nation needs saving, God sends a baby into the world, to a simple home, to maybe a little obscure mama, and he puts into the mother's heart an idea, and she puts that idea into the baby's mind, and then God waits. The greatest forces in the world are not the earthquakes or the thunderbolts. The greatest forces are babies. And mothers and fathers have a profound influence in developing their character, in shaping their destiny, and ultimately helping to save nations. Your great Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina, in his rebuttal speech, did you all watch that a few months ago in the spring when President Biden gave his 100-day review and Senator Scott gave the rebuttal? He told a powerful story nationwide. Do you remember that? It's 14 minutes. Go back on and pull it online and watch it. He said when he was a young boy, his parents divorced, and he and his brother and mom had to move back to Grandma and Grandpa's house. And they all had to sleep in one bedroom, and he was disillusioned, and he was confused about what was going on. But he saw his mama faithfully praying, and he said it was her example that converted him to Christianity and changed his life. He said his family went from the cotton fields to Congress in one generation because of the prayers of his mother. Mamas, you are the heartbeat of America, and it is you who will anchor your home in hope. You will be amazed at how the opportunities will begin to present themselves as you begin to learn these principles of liberty and freedom together in cottage meeting settings. You just watch miracles unfold in your life because you are willing to say, okay, Lord, here am I. Send me, teach me what I need to know so I can go out there and be a light. Mothers, the future of America is in your hands, and God has put you here, not by accident today. You're going to hear things. Ideas are going to distill gently upon your hearts, and then he's going to wait to see what you do. He has promised us in 2 Chronicles 7:14, that great scripture, that if we will seek his face and humble ourselves and repent and turn from our wicked ways, he will heal our land. He will fight our battles. We cannot do it without him. God doesn't need a majority of families doing this. He just needs enough to know that we are willing to get on that wall, and we know that he works through small and simple means to bring about his purposes. And I do think he knows we're going to lose battles. We are losing battles every day. He just wants to know we're willing to get up and fight them, because we know who wins in the end. This nation shall endure, and God will prevail. God in heaven did not set up this first free people in modern times just to see it collapse into oblivion. As we do our part, it will justify the heavens to intervene and heal our land. And it will begin with one mother and one father in one home, in one cottage meeting, in one neighborhood at a time. My beautiful mamas, it has been said 10 small discussion groups in the community will do more to create a new way of life than 100 mass meetings. Mamas, in your circles of influence, starting in your home, you can turn the world around. May God bless you and uphold you in this great work, and may God bless America. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am Elaine Norman. I am the wife of Congressman Ralph Norman from this district, the 5th District of South Carolina. And I bring you greetings from Ralph. Elizabeth asked me to speak, and then my mom went in the hospital, and I thought she was going to have surgery. So we were juggling Ralph's schedule around, and he was going to have to take my place, but then Mama didn't have to have surgery, so yay, I'm here. So anyway, but Ralph is so in support of all of this and moms, and we are so happy to be here. But today I come to speak to you as a mother and a grandmother. Ralph and I are the parents of 4 children, their spouses, and 17 grandchildren. And they're all so wonderful. We are so proud of each of them, and we're a very close family, and all 25 of our family members live within 10 minutes of us. So Ralph and I have always enjoyed having our children close by us, and we had one daughter move back from Alabama, and we are thrilled to have her family and her 6 children close by now too. So I have everybody right there near us. But Ralph and I taught our children the love of Jesus Christ, the love of family, and the love of country. We taught them the importance of hard work, freedom, and to treat everyone with kindness, and to respect authority. But I think that these values are being challenged today in America. But I'm happy to see all of you here today, and all of you wonderful mamas that believe in the same values that Ralph and I raised our children on. But it's time for conservatives to stand up for our values and let our voices be heard loud and clear, and to not cower to those who call us prejudiced, racist, or despicable. We're in a moral civil war in this country, and we must win the war as conservatives. Your presence here today shows that you are willing to take up the banner to protect our conservative values in this country. I think these values that we all believe in is the majority of values in America. It's just the media gives a platform to people like movie stars who are mostly train wrecks, and they give voices to people like AOC, who I want to say publicly should not be in Congress. She is no role model for the young people, and I'm not afraid to say it. It's time for us to rise up and speak out loud and clear for a family that consists of one man and one woman. It's time for us to speak up for a Christ-centered family that attends church together, eats meals together, and encourages each other. Ralph and I still have Sunday dinner, 25 come over when we're in town, and it is so important. We learn so much from gathering around the dinner table that's lost in this country, and I think we should bring it back. We need to speak out for the unborn and what is taught in our schools. And it's our choice whether we take the vaccine or give it to our children. We need to all stand proudly together for our American flag and kneel only in respect of Jesus Christ, our Savior. But the left is trying to squelch all of these values and make Americans believe that they stand with the majority. But it isn't the majority. And mamas, it's time for us to rise up and say, no, you're wrong. And who can do this more than mamas, right? I love the scene from A Big Fat Greek Wedding. Have y'all ever seen that movie? The mama says the man is the head and the woman is the neck that turns the head. Well, that is very true, and that's why mamas can do whatever they make up their mind to do. And that's why I'm here today, to encourage each of you to stand up and speak out. There are powers in numbers. I hear Ralph say that in every speech he makes. He also tells this story of a mama that called him one day, and she was appalled by what was being taught in her daughter's school, and it was in this district. And she wanted to know what Ralph could do about it. Well, Ralph said, well, I'm in Congress, I make federal laws. I can't do anything about the schools, but mamas can do something about the schools. And that's where people, he said, they're more powerful than Congress. And so Ralph told her to get a group of people together, a group of mamas together, that felt the same way she did, and to go to the principal or the school board and own up the ranks, and there was power in numbers. So for them to get together and go to the school, start with the principal. And he said, I will even go with you to support you in this effort. Well, she hung up the phone and she called back in a couple of days, and she told Ralph that she was afraid to go because of the repercussions, the negative repercussions that might happen to her own daughter. And she also said she found out that there were a lot of mothers that felt the same way, but, y'all have heard this before, didn't want to get involved. Well, ladies, this attitude is why we are in the moral civil war we are in now in America. This thought process is unacceptable. And now, if we want to keep America the land of the free and home of the brave, we can't stay silent. So I want to encourage each of you, don't be intimidated or afraid of repercussions. Get involved, stay involved, speak up, and speak out. Mama bears protect their cubs, and it's time for the right women to be heard, not the left women. Our children and our grandchildren's future depends on it, and I thank you all for being here. Thank you.
I'd ask each of you to stand up because we're people of movement here. That's what you've been heard today. And I want you to look to the person on the left and say, you look amazing. And the person on your right, tell them, I'm so glad I'm sitting next to you today. Thank you. You may be seated. My name is Jim Quick. I'm with the North Carolina Faith and Freedom Coalition. I also have worked with a lot of groups across North Carolina and South Carolina. I actually was on a bus with Congressman Norman's wife all across North Carolina pitching for a race. And I learned long ago, if you want to get something done, you give it to a woman. You know, and so if you look around what's happening in our nation, you don't see Dads for America groups coming up. You don't see Dads for Liberty coming up. It's each of you that are stepping into this race and making it done and making it happen. So I want to ask each of you to give yourself a round of applause for working so hard and working for this nation. So I was at a meeting last week, and we were talking about CRT, and we were doing an educational group because that's what North Carolina Faith and Freedom does. We educate voters across the nation. And somebody came up to me and said, you know, that school board member you're just talking to, you know, they think CRT should be in our schools. And this was somebody that I absolutely had no idea that they were supporting CRT. And so you're going to hear about CRT. You're going to hear a lot today about opportunities for you to get involved. But I'm encouraging you to take the time. Now, I know all of you already have full-time jobs because, after all, you're a full-time mom. You're a full-time wife. You're probably involved in your church. You're probably already working outside the house. And so you're working very hard. But what you're going to hear today about these cottage meetings, about these educational opportunities to get involved, it's so important for you to be able to carve out just an hour or two a month, if you can just do that, because you are going to make a difference. In North Carolina, we decided at Faith and Freedom that we were going to make a difference. And so we decided that we were going to set out to make the largest faith engagement and educational process that in North Carolina's history. So in the 2020 election, we reached out to 350,000 homes. We reached out to 1.5 million people online in order to engage in that election. And so you may be discouraged right now because if you look at the headlines, you see who's in the White House. But I want to let you know, in North Carolina, and I think this is the case in South Carolina as well, in local policies and county commissioners in your local governments, conservatives and Republicans control the majority of all of those offices. And so that's because people at the local level are getting involved. And so in North Carolina, we have some very important municipal races. You know, you have some school board races, and it's so important for you to get involved. So we are actually, for the 5th year, sponsoring a big event up in Mount Airy, North Carolina. It's about 2 hours from now. I'd love for all of you to come. If you don't already have a ticket, see me at the back. I'll be able to get you a ticket or show you how to get one. So we've got Mike Huckabee coming up. We've got Pastor Jeffers from Dallas coming. Sheriff Joe is coming in from Arizona. You look at that speakers list, and it is very, very powerful. But I'm here to tell you about one speaker you probably don't know about. She's a pastor's wife here at a church in the Charlotte market. And they just did not really get engaged in politics. I reached out to that church during the DNC, when the DNC was in this market back in 2012. We did a prayer gathering. 10,000 people came to that and prayed for our nation and prayed for our city when the Democrats came to this region. I went to that church and I said, will you please come? Will you bring your people? They said, we don't want to get involved in politics. You know, we're really going to stay focused to sharing the gospel. I have no problem with that. I think that's important that we share the gospel in our churches. But they declined. And several other opportunities throughout the year. We had a presidential debate here in South Carolina in Fort Mill. I asked that church if they wanted to come and participate. They said, no, we really don't get involved in politics. You know what began to change their mind? They began to change their mind when the government came and told them they had to close their church. They could no longer have people into their church. They could no longer share the gospel. And so all of a sudden, these pastors said, well, wait a minute. I think maybe we've been sitting on the sidelines too long. And so they got engaged. And so I'm encouraging you in all the opportunities. You're not going to be able to take care of everything, and take advantage of everything you'll hear today. But don't wait for it to be too long for your family, because it's going to impact your schools. They're going to be teaching things in the schools and you no longer have an option. Don't wait for it's too late for you and your community, because this church now is involved. It's cost them heavily. They've now involved in politics, and half of their congregation left. But you know what? All of those seats are now full. Their church is prospering more than any other church in this area. And you may have read about them, because in Mecklenburg County, they decided that they were going to force masks on everybody inside of a church. And this church was the first church this time, not the last. They were the first church to stand up and say, not in our building. If you want to wear a mask, that's perfectly fine. But the government has no rules and no responsibility to mandate things that are going to happen inside the house of worship. So they stood up and said, that's not going to happen in our church. And so I'm here to encourage you that men and women around this nation, men and women in our churches, and especially you ladies that are here, you are making a difference. So if you'd like to come and hear from leaders from around the nation, they're going to be up in Mount Airy next weekend. It's on Saturday. Please connect with me in the back and keep doing a good job.
It's so exciting to hear that there is something to do, that we don't have to just sit back and watch our nation get taken from us, but we can actually make a stand. And in that, we can make a stand for the purposes of God. We can make a stand for our children, for our grandchildren, and their children. And there's so much hope to take hold of today. But we are going to take a couple minutes and sing a couple more songs. We invite you to join us with this first one.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
You may be seated. We have one more song to share with you, and this is an original written by Salem Hudson, which is Donica's daughter. We're so glad that she, as a young future leader of this nation, is seeing the importance of getting involved and seeing the importance of learning from those who have gone before and continue to fight the fight. And we need to train up this next generation to be passionate about what really matters. And so we're so glad that she's here. And she wrote this song.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm very grateful to be able to share my song. Also, if you want to sing along, feel free. If you want to dance about, I say move your feet. So without no further ado. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your love. shaking, heart awakening kind of love. And now I'm free to laugh, free to dance, free to sing, free to be whoever you made me to be. Now I'm free to laugh, free to dance, free to sing, free to be whoever you made me to be. And it goes like, whoa, oh, 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 oh. It just sounds like, and now I'm free to laugh, free to dance, free to sing, free to be whoever you made me to be. And now I'm free to laugh, free to dance, free to sing, free to be whoever you made me to be.
I'm not a magician. Although some people would say politicians do have sleight of hand. What a pleasure it is to be here today. My name's Ted Alexander. I serve in the North Carolina Senate, District 44, which is just west of Charlotte, Cleveland County, Lincoln County, and a little piece of Gaston County. And it's my privilege to be here. Did I hear some clapping? All right, go ahead. You know, there is a God, and He answers prayers, and I'll tell you exactly why I know that, because I do not have to follow Madison Cawthorn today. I want to thank Donica Hudson and all those who invited me here today, and I would commend to you her book, Make America Pray Again. It's a wonderful book. I read it. I really meant a lot to me. I also, you remember that the Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina's, one of his aides was here earlier, and I am so proud of our Lieutenant Governor, who's the head of the Senate in North Carolina, because I realized last night after hearing him speak that I have been deficient in whenever I'm introducing and saying things, because the first thing out of his mouth every time is he gives credit to his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and I want to do that today. I also want to thank my wife, Patty, who's here. She is just, what a wonderful helpmeet she is, and dear, you know, my friend, and partner in crime. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit this afternoon, and I'll try to keep it to the 15 or 20 minutes or so. And so if somebody, you know, give me the signal, because, you know, I can get started. All right. I want to talk a little bit about first, Donica said maybe talk a little bit about how my mother influenced. I'm going to talk a little bit about my grandmother. Talk about my grandmother first. My grandmother was Ural Rollins Bostick Edwards. Her first husband passed away at Bostick, and she remarried an Edwards. So I always knew her as Ural Edwards. We lived in her house as I was growing up until she passed away when I was about 12. I remember my grandmother as a very godly woman. She read her Bible every day, every Sunday. She had some infirmities. She didn't get to go to church like she wanted to, but she would read her Bible every Sunday, and she would be praying every Sunday. She instilled a love for reading and for me in general, and taught me early on a lot of the kind of the songs and hymns that I still have in the back of my mind. She had sort of wrote a bunch of songs that she would sing to us when we were little. And she was born in 1897. And back when she was coming along, I guess the careers for women were not as robust as they are now. And so she, one of the few paths, I guess, open at that time was for teachers. And she was a teacher. And she taught in the Cleveland County school system, which is where I ended up moving. I grew up in Morganton, but ended up moving back to Cleveland County 30 years ago. But she's taught in the Cleveland County schools system. And I was going through stuff not too long ago, and I ran into a little booklet. This is the Educational Bulletin number 11, Opening Exercises for Public Schools in North Carolina, the 6th edition, and it was issued from the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction of North Carolina in Raleigh in July of 1917, and it has my grandmother's signature on it. She wrote on this. And in the preface, the guy who, I guess, put it out here, he says, each day's work in every school should begin with brief, interesting, instructive, and uplifting opening exercises, a part of which should be devotional, consisting of the reading of the Bible, prayer, and singing. And it goes on to do other things, talk about other things. But in the course of this book, it talks about many, many different things about what you should do during your opening exercises of school every day. You should talk about, it talks about things like the Song of Moses and Miriam. It gives you kind of a list of sort of some topics that you can talk about. The 10 Commandments, God is our refuge, the Beatitudes, the lost sheep, how to pray, the sower, and care for the children. And all this was, they talked about teaching cohesion in the class, love of God, love of God and fellow man, the love of our country, the love of our morals, wisdom, good practices, values and honesty and thrift and kindness, of history, of hard work, of forgiveness, humility, courtesy. These were things that were mentioned throughout that we should be teaching our kids. And Julene earlier mentioned those are the kinds of things that now almost we have to do underground as you will now. You know what I'm saying? That's now something that's completely foreign, it seems, to our public school system. But this was in 1917. How far we have come. And these things that I talked about, those kinds of things of wisdom and good practices and, hard work and all that, those are the things that really create order and harmony and really do advance the kingdom of God on earth. And let me just say, that brings up one point I want to mention. My grandmother taught me the love of reading. And I'm going to mention some resources in a little bit at some point in time, just as a kind of advertisement. But one of the books I just recently read, about 5 years ago, I found on our bookcase a yellowed paperback version of Shaping History Through Prayer and Fasting by Derek Prince. I had never read that book before, but I read that book about 6 years ago, and it just transformed my whole viewpoint on prayer and fasting. And when I got sworn in 3 years ago at my swearing-in ceremony, I referenced that book because in that it talks about the key to good government, or the purpose of good government. You need to pray for good government because good government is what basically allows for the gospel to be proclaimed. He gets there in a logical way. It's really kind of interesting how he does that. But all of these things that are in this book talk about order and so forth. And Satan you know, our enemy, he hates all of that stuff. I mean, he hates all that kind of stuff I just talked about. And so is it any surprise that over the years he would implement schemes and ideas to negate that sort of thing? You know, think about it. Where does Satan dwell? Where does he live? He dwells and thrives off of hatred, off of disorder, a hatred of God, and hatred of his principles. And I think some people would say he lives on Facebook and Twitter too, but he sees how he sees our country as it was formed and as our founding fathers set it up as a threat based on the biblical principles that we were founded upon. So is it any wonder that the humanists such as Mr. John Dewey, or I call him Mr. John Dewey Decimal System, and others back in the 1920s began in earnest promoting the humanist viewpoint and socialism, while socialism and communism were really growing over in then Christian Russia. Those tactics began planting the seeds over here in the United States. And they used, of course, the Scopes monkey trial at the time as sort of the national jumping off point to begin the portrayal of Christians, because this was a trial about Christianity creationism. They used that, radio was their medium at the time. They used that as sort of their jumping off point to portray us Christians as all backwards, hicks and that sort of thing. And it stuck. You think about the movie Inherit the Wind. What does it tell you? Well, we're just a bunch of backwood hicks. And our beliefs are kind of, backwards. And they've been pretty successful. So successful, in fact, that the public schools have been virtually sanitized, as you know. And they've been stripped of any discussion of any of these kinds of things. Prayer and, of course, and Bible reading, any of that kind of stuff. Creationism. Even the Pledge of Allegiance now is threatened. And it's now turned into almost a hostile environment, except for the remnant of those believers who still serve as missionaries within our school system. And even the Christian teachings of Dr. Martin Luther King are being tossed aside now. And they're tossed overboard through critical race theory, which really started back in you can almost pinpoint it back in 1989. It's essentially and totally an anti-biblical, anti-Christian philosophy. It says, by mere virtue of the melanin in your skin, as Vodi Bakum says, then you're not only separated by race, but you're not equal, according to what's being taught now. So I would commend to you Dr. Vodi Bakum's book, if you haven't read it yet, Fault Lines. It's outstanding. It gives you a clear idea of what's going on in terms of critical race theory. And it also tells you how this is invading the church, which is also very unsettling, but it is also enlightening. So I would commend that book to you in terms of a resource. And by the way, in the North Carolina Senate, we just passed, the House and the Senate, a bill which would in essence prohibit those kinds of teachings in our school system. It was that's the good news. The bad news is our governor, Roy Cooper, vetoed that bill, and we do not have the majorities to override. So that's why these elections in 2022 are extremely important. But we did pass this. This was an initiative, and I'll give our Senate Pro Tem, Phil Berger, full credit for this kind of thing. He really pushed this. It was an excellent piece. We've got copies of it, by the way, on the back table back here if you'd like to look and see what we did. The National Association of Christian Lawmakers, which I'm state chairman from in North Carolina, used this as its model for other states. So keep that in. That's another resource for you. We've seen a total drift away from sound biblical principles over the years, of course, in education, our schools, universities, the entertainment, arts, culture. You know all this, even sports these days, and as even churches in many cases, as Bauckham shows. And the question I think that we need to be asking those out there, these bold and brilliant and beautiful people out there who are promoting all of this stuff, this is the question we need to be asking them. How's that been working for them? How has that been working for them? The total destruction of and deconstruction of Christianity and the morals and the principles and the cohesion that formed our country and has carried our country for 200 some years is being tossed out, just tossed out. And how's that working? Is that really working for you? I think that's the question we need to come back to them and say, okay, you think this was so bad, we Christians are so bad and so evil because we believe in the right and wrong and we believe in the ultimate truth. How's this other stuff working for you? So as a legislator and somebody who's been involved in, I'm a Republican, involved in Republican Party years, what makes us think that this slide may not occur within our own party? It slides everywhere. There's a constant drift, constant pull for every institution to go to the left, correct? I mean, it's inevitable. So what makes us think that that's not going to be possible within our own party, or at least in my own party? 10 or 15 years ago, not a single Republican in North Carolina voted for the statewide lottery. It passed because the Democrats were in charge at the time. Yet sometime between 2017 and 2021, the platform of the state of North Carolina GOP dropped its opposition to gambling. I don't know how that happened, but we've got to be vigilant about those kinds of things. We've got to be careful and diligent amongst ourselves, again, on the same thing that can happen to our institution. Now, if you're a good Democrat, then you should go work in your party to help make it drift back to the right, okay? So if you happen to be registered as a Democrat, that's your job. You've got to go try to, pull the Democrat Party in the correct way. Let me say, though, however, there are very many active Christians in our state legislature in North Carolina. I'm sure that's true in South Carolina and many other legislatures across the state because we see them through the National Association of Christian Lawmakers. Those who care deeply about the moral issues of abortion and being pro-life and the traditional family, as was mentioned earlier, human trafficking and the concern of the opioid and drug abuse and marijuana and its rise in usage, and the history of our country and its biblical heritage. We care about those kinds of things. And we care about the increasing availability of alcohol and gambling. Those are kinds of things that there are many Christians within the party and within the legislature who care deeply about those kinds of things. 20 years ago in North Carolina, when the Democrats were totally in charge, you still had, believe it or not, 20, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, you still had a pretty strong Christian ethic and background on the part of the legislature. It was sort of known that there was a lot of course, in North Carolina, we have a lot of Southern Baptist churches. A lot of the legislators were Southern Baptists, and that kind of sort of tempered what they did back then at that time. So you would still see some things that would be pro-life and some other things that would be passed back then. That were still had a Christian heritage or bent to them. And that held them in check, I think, or at least it stanched the slide. But I know that while I know that there are strong self-professing Christians in the Democratic caucus now, the legislative supported and proposed nowadays is a far cry from 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And this leads me to the point. So what do you do? What do you do to help ensure that these Judeo-Christian beliefs and the principles that were proven so effective over the development of our country and held sway and still primarily do hold sway in the GOP? Because our party, I know this is not a partisan thing, but I'm a Republican, And our party was founded upon the basic moral principle of anti-slavery. And had it not been for the Republican Party, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 would not have been passed. Martin Luther King was a Republican. Rosa Parks was a Republican. Republicans held sway in the black community up until almost the early mid-60s. But we have to realize that the lure and the drift of the siren call of the left is ever present in every institute and even in our own party. So that we have to remember that younger Republicans, and y'all are training, at least let's say conservative, y'all are training young students, y'all are training kids. So we've got to be training these kids to be brought up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And right now, in a secular, completely secular society, the education is secular, the influence of the average, young person today is probably the half-life of what it was 20 years ago. And then, in nuclear stuff, the half-life of nuclear radiation, radioactivity, declines by half-life over years, So our half-life of the Christian influence in the United States is rapidly, it's halving every generation. So what is a mom to do? Of course, raise your children up in the admonition of the Lord, as I said. But at the political level, what do? Well, the obvious things are that you pray. That goes without saying. You get involved. And you've heard examples of that today, where you've heard of people getting involved in the local stuff. That is through your time, your efforts, volunteering for your candidate or for your legislator or for your government official, volunteering, and your money. And for those of you who have an interest in your kids, or your kids have an interest in political stuff, for instance, again, I'm Republican, the Teenage Republicans, excellent organization to get in, and we need the leavening of Christian teenage Republicans within the Teenage Republicans, the TARs. We need the leavening of Christian young people and college Republicans. We need it. It's not enough just to be an economic conservative. We need the economic and the social conservatives joined together, because they are completely related. At the state level in North Carolina, Tucker Coombs is the president of the TARs, a good young Christian man. So Tucker Coombs, remember that name if you have TARs, Teenage Republicans. Mo Snipes from Gaston County is the vice president. So I can put you in touch with either of these if you have an interest. I can also put you in touch with the college Republicans and that kind of thing if you have an interest. But young people have got to get involved. Christian young people have got to get involved with the political process now, because otherwise half-living is going to happen even faster. The currency in the legislature is power and money. And power resides in the party structure, and money is how power is bought. And the dirty secret is that Christians expect Christian lawmakers to do the right things because we're Christians. Right? But remember, many Republicans now, these days, are Christian, but maybe not the way you and I see Christians. They may be Christians in name. And these issues that we talk about here are not necessarily on their radar screen these days. You hear again, we're economic conservatives, but we don't want to get too crazy about these social issues. We don't want to get criticized or portrayed as a zealot or a radical, or we don't want to be embarrassed. We don't want to be seen as too religious. So here's the best way that I can tell you to combat that. One is to encourage well-grounded Christians to run and serve, to get involved, to volunteer. But I think, and this is kind of, this is not what you typically think you were going to hear in this kind of setting. But Christians don't understand that if you're looking for those Christian men and women serving in the halls of government as missionaries, and they are missionaries, the true Christians, they are missionaries, that you have to give. And you have to generously support them. Because that is how, within the party itself, is how your bills get heard. The more money that you raise, the more influence that you have. It's just that simple. It's not good. It's not the way I like it, but that's the way it is. And the days of just expecting people to do the right thing because it is the right thing to do, those are coming to a close pretty quickly. There's still, again, a fair number left, those who serve and who serve as a calling from the Lord. But you want to go ahead, you want to get ahead of the curve and try to encourage more of these folks to run. Well, you say, we can't talk about money in politics. That's the idea of that, scandal and bribery and quid pro quo and stuff like that. That's dirty. We don't want to get to talk about that. I'm not talking about that kind of thing, but I am talking about there are legislators who are there, who are able to raise money for their caucus. They get their bills heard. That's it. That's as simple as I can put it. And that's a dirty secret that most people just don't know. And that money has to come from somewhere. And that somewhere will sway a legislator who has 50 things to choose from and use his or her precious time for those issues. They may be perfectly good and important other kinds of issues. But they're likely things that you or I as a Christian just don't care about. Stuff that, who cares? But on the other hand, if money comes from Christians, and it's known that money comes from Christians, in this case, might not they give their time and hearing to those issues as well? Why do we give? Why do we give? Why do we give to a church? Why do we give to a nonprofit organization? Why do we give to ministries? Because we expect and think and hope and know that they will do those kinds of things that advance the kingdom of God, right? Why is it any different that we would think that missionaries and people serving in government, that we should not do the same thing? Because money is the currency in government. It's not a happy thought, but it's true. So why should we think any different? If we're going to have to understand that in a post-Christian society with post-Christian leanings in all branches of government, the Christian legislator and lawmakers are missionaries, and you need to support them, it's no different. And so you have to get involved, and you have to give generously. Give your time, your efforts, your volunteers, and your money. If you want government elected officials, and I'm not asking money for myself. Now I do notice there are 2 buckets down here now, so I'm not. That's just a pure coincidence. But if you want government elected officials to wield influence and devote time to issues we care deeply about, we're going to have to invest the resources of prayer, work, and money to see results, and we must identify those Christian lawmakers and treat them like the missionaries that they are. And so that's my charge to you. And to be anticlimactic, I forgot the books. I'm going to go over them real quickly, okay? I'm just going to hold them up, and then this is for the sake of the Facebook. The Bible, America's Source of Law and Liberty by Stephen McDowell. Absolutely a phenomenal resource for you. Okay, and I've got a couple of extra copies if you want to hit me up afterwards. The Wall of Separation, The Phase That Divided America by Brian Godawa. This really throws kind of the fake belief that we have in the Wall of Separation of Church and State. This exposes that. Anything by William Federer is a really good resource for you to read. This is Socialism, the Real History from Plato to the Present. This is an excellent, outstanding book. For those of you who really want a big, meaty book, this is Wayne Grudem, The Politics According to the Bible. This is a good textbook, excellent textbook. And so, I'm going to leave you with that and leave you with, like I said, we have got to begin to think of our legislators and those who serve in government as the missionaries that are. Thank you so much, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Senator. There's so many great nuggets in what the Senator just shared with us that we can definitely be thinking about, and I hear Congressman Norman say the same thing over and over about getting involved. And go ahead and just put your name on the line and get out there to serve this community. And whether it's going to school board meetings and county council or city council meetings, or whether it's running for those seats in those offices, we need strong people in those places standing for truth and for righteousness. We need those people with a backbone like you mamas who are not going to step down, who will not be corrupted by the deception, who will not be corrupted by money. I refuse to be corrupted by money because I stand before God and I have a fear of the Lord. And so we need to be that. We need to be those people that refuse to sit back. We refuse to go in the corner and cry. We refuse to roll over and die because our nation requires it of us to stand and to move things forward, to turn this nation around, to be the nation of God that it is called to be. For those of you who weren't here at the very beginning, my name is Dr. Elizabeth Enns. And I am one of the senior pastors here at Antioch, but I am also the president and founder of Patriotic Students of America. I was born and grew up in Canada, but in 2005, my husband and I moved here to the United States for a new adventure, expecting to live here for 3 years as an international teacher. We ended up staying a little longer. After our second year living here, we realized that this was home and we wanted to stay. So we began the process for permanent residency, and eventually, after a long battle with immigration, we became American citizens in 2019. Thank you. I love America. It is a great nation full of great people. When you have lived in other places and traveled to other nations, you quickly realize that this is truly a great nation, founded on greatness. And it is an integral part of God's plan. When you understand what the rest of the world is like, you understand what there is to lose. We are here today because we understand what is at stake. We are here today because we know what there is to lose. We are here today because we are not ready or willing to lose it. This is a place that everyone else in the world turns to for help. This is the land that people flock to in order to escape their nations. If we fall, if we need to escape, where is there left to go? Not Canada. One of my life philosophies is that you can't complain about something unless you're willing to do something about it. I have recently tweaked that life philosophy just a little bit. Stop complaining and just get on with doing something about it. Nothing can be done on Facebook. It just can't. We need to be about our business and turn things around. Recognizing the problem and being willing to do something is all well and good, but now is the time to actually get on with it. There are solutions out there. Some are already being carried out, like our cottage groups, like godly conservatives running for office, like the Moms of Liberty storming the gates of the school boards. Yeah,
Some of these solutions are already being carried out, and others are waiting for you. They're waiting for your creative, courageous tenacity to get them started. Most nation-saving solutions are not a one-and-done quick fix. It requires commitment, endurance to see it through. Anything worth doing takes hard work, dedication, and sacrifice. I loved what I heard earlier with the Moms for America, how some of these groups have been going for 10 years. And so we see the amazing fruit because of what has been going on for years. If you start thinking about parenting when your child is 15 and 16 and has decided they don't like the rules, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, but you're too late. Parenting starts in the womb. Parenting starts when you bring that child home from the hospital and you choose what you're going to feed them. You choose when their bedtime is. You choose what they're going to watch, who they're going to play with, if you're going to go to church. All of those things start right at the beginning. And it takes time to cultivate amazing men and women of God who will continue this nation for the purposes of God. It takes time, it takes commitment, and it takes sacrifice. Saving this nation for our children, our grandchildren, and their children is definitely worth the sacrifice. While we take a stand against the issues that are surrounding us, it is of utmost importance that we at the same time train our children to do the same and to give them the tools to do it better than we have and sooner. Let's teach them to do it sooner and not to wait. It is not the school's responsibility before God to raise our children. It is not the church's job either. It is our job. And the various institutions within our society are there to support us in doing our job. They are here to serve us. We don't bow to them. We don't serve them. They serve us and our families. That being said, it is our joy and our privilege to raise our children to love God, to love people, and to love their nation. Out of that passion to see young people love God, love others, and love their nation, and recognizing that it wasn't being taught and it needs to be cultivated. Through that, I launched Patriotic Students of America. Patriotic Students of America is a nonpartisan, non-religious, nonprofit organization, a lot of nons. But it equips families with the tools and supports them to start patriotic clubs. This is geared for young people from kindergarten through grade 12. It encourages monthly meetings where the club members will learn about the Constitution, the founding of this nation. They will connect with one another and realize that we have more in common than we do differences. And we do this through fun games because kids learn best when they're having fun, when they're up and moving. During a club meeting, the kids will learn about great Americans like inventors, artists, musicians, and even presidents. Each month, they will be given an action challenge to go out and do something good, like help someone in need, or perhaps ask a veteran if he has some wisdom or she has some wisdom that they would like to share with the world. Do we have any veterans in the house today? Thank you for your service. We honor you. We are so grateful for what you gave, and even in your life today, what you continue to give. So in our clubs, we want kids to be activated. We just don't want them to learn some information, but we want them to be out, go out, be part of something bigger than themselves, and be challenged to be great. Because if they never do anything great, then they can buy into the lie that they're just some victim. But if we teach our children that they were purposed for greatness, they were created to be great, they live in this amazing nation full of great people to do great things, and we give them opportunity to try it and learn from their failures so that next time they can do an even greater job, that boosts their idea of who they were created to be. But they need those challenges to get out there and do that. We also are offering virtual clubs because we understand that there are some kids in some communities that don't have the opportunity to connect with other kids, or perhaps they live in a state that unfortunately is shutting down right now. So we've started virtual clubs so kids can sign up online and they can be part of a monthly Zoom meeting and learn and play and get to know other kids that love this nation and want to be great for this nation. I wrote in this last year a curriculum because I did a lot of research and found that I couldn't find a curriculum for kids to use in clubs. So I wrote a one-year curriculum for kids of all ages to just come together, to learn some lessons, to play some games, to learn about great people, and then to be inspired. But the greatness of this nation isn't just history. We weren't just great 100 years ago. We are still great today. We are still full of great people today. And so we have a segment that we put on once a month called C to C in 60 seconds. And this sweet, energetic, amazing young man named Asher Enns. You can laugh because he's my son, if you didn't hear my last name originally. But he does a little broadcast once a month called C to C in 60 seconds to highlight kids across this nation that are doing great things. Because there are still very much great people across this nation, but we just don't often hear about it because all we hear is all the negative and all the bad. And so he ends each broadcast with, be great and look for greatness. What you look for, you will find. If you look for the negative, if you look for everything bad, that is all you will see. But if you look for the greatness, if you look for the greatness around you and the beauty around you, that is what you will see. We were created in the image of God, so that means when I look at you, I should see God. I should see part of who he is, his love, his kindness, his gentleness. I should see aspects of God when I look at his beautiful creation, his children. So be great and look for greatness. With this curriculum, we also created, see if I can get it out. Oh, I have a backup. An honor coin. What you honor, you get more of. Just like if you know about the military, they have a coin challenge where they honor people in the military with coins for doing something great or showing great character. So we have adopted that with Patriotic Students of America. So every month, a child in the club can get awarded for doing something great or having great character. Or the club can choose that there's this thing happening in our community where this youth group gets together and they go feed the homeless. We're going to go visit that youth group and we're going to honor them with a coin for doing something great. And so, because as we do this, it will become contagious with other people. When I used to be a classroom teacher, and if I wanted my class to be quiet and look at me, it wasn't very effective, and it was just not me to be like, all right, everybody be quiet. But if you pause and you change your voice and you say, I love the way that Sally is sitting. Look how perfectly she's sitting crisscross applesauce. She's looking at me and smiling. Look at those beautiful eyes smile. You know what? Everybody is going to be quiet and start looking at you and sitting perfectly because they want to be honored for their good behavior. So when we teach our children by honoring their greatness and honoring their good behavior, it becomes contagious and they want to do good things for other people. They want to be great. They want to fight for those who can't fight for themselves, and we instill that to pass it on to the next generation. Everyone can start a club and teach this. Kids can be any age. We have kids and teachers starting these in their schools. We have kids starting them in their neighborhoods with friends. We have youth groups starting them in their churches and homeschool groups starting them and in their co-ops. We have grandmas. This is one of my favorite. We have a lot of grandma clubs where grandmas are starting these with their grandkids. And this is actually how this should be. At some point, our culture started saying, don't listen to your mom. She doesn't know anything about raising kids. How you survived is beyond me. But don't listen to your mom or your grandma. You just raise your own kids. It's a terrible thing that has happened in our nation. God gives us family. God gives us children, but he gave us moms and grandmas who have done this and their kids survived because you're here to tell about it. So they know a thing or two about raising kids. So when grandmas can start these clubs and train the young ones about being great and train the young ones about this nation, train the young ones about having good character and pass it on. I have one grandma whose kids are all across the nation, and so she bought them each a book, and she has a Zoom meeting once a month with all the grandkids, and they come together and have a club. So all the excuses and the buts are getting thrown right out the window, because everyone can start a club. Everyone can contribute in some way. Another way is to support a club. This week, I got phone calls about 4 schools that are interested in starting clubs in rural areas, but they don't have it in their budget. So I said, no problem. I will send it to you, and I will find someone to support it. Because if we have people that are interested in teaching this and passing this on, I'm not going to let money, that's just terrible reason. Well, our country just kind of died and fell apart because we couldn't get some kids some materials. That's not going to fly. So we have ways of supporting kids to start clubs. The story's not over yet. God has the last word, and he is looking for us to respond to the call of action. Today, you are hearing lots of great information from different people and different spheres. And I want to encourage you to get involved, whether it's by starting a patriotic club, whether it's by getting involved with a mom's group, whether it's putting your name on the line and running for office. Maybe it's a little bit of everything, because us moms can wear a lot of hats. It's time to get involved. It's time to do something to turn this nation around. Now, if you're interested in starting a club, you can visit us at www.patrioticstudents.com, or you can come and see me or some of my team at our booth back here. If you have any questions or wonders, you can always email us or reach out to us. So get involved. Thank you.
Can y'all hear me? Yes, you can. I'm going to set my little alarm here because I am chatty. But now it's not. It went to a weird screen. Okay, y'all just wave your hands in 15 minutes. Who can do that? Somebody time me. Okay, perfect. My name is Brittany Bolden, and I am the Moms for Liberty Chair in Union County, North Carolina. I'm kind of a little bit like, I can't believe I'm doing this because, and I'm going to walk around that, because, y'all, I'm just a mom. 5 months ago, I was sitting on my couch, probably in PJs or something that stretches, athleisure, you know, watching the news or trying not to watch the news and realizing that my country was imploding, and it was threatening my children's future. And y'all, that was just not okay. It was just, there was nothing about it that was okay. And then now here I am. So what I think, so I had, y'all, I mean, I've rewritten and rewritten my speech 50 times. I've got probably the equivalent of 5 speeches here. And I even was sent a speech. And nothing seemed to be hitting home with me, which is really strange because I do like to talk, and talking is not a hard thing for me to do, and it usually is not this hard. And on the way here, I just felt like, well, first of all, I kind of felt weird talking about myself, because I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's happened over the past 18 months. But I felt weird talking about myself. And then on the way here, I felt like God was like, ditch the speech is plural. Ditch the speeches. And you're not talking about yourself. You're actually talking about me. And that was like a huge aha moment. And I'm just going to tell you guys, well, first of all, the three things I'm going to say. I'm talking about God, I'm talking about truth, and I'm talking about getting off the fence. So my entire life, I was, ooh, there's a bump there. I became a Christian every year at summer camp from 3rd through 9th grade. And I'm a bit of a mutt. I was raised Methodist. We went to church on the holidays. The Bible existed on the back of the pew in front of me. It didn't ever leave that spot. I went to like I said, to camp. I met a boy at camp and went to Baylor University to follow the boy. So I was at a Baptist college. I went to a Baptist church, had a bad experience, left God, said, see you later. I don't trust these people. I don't trust you. Ended up at a church under a bridge with the homeless. Had an experience just about what God truly was under that bridge. You could roll out of bed, you didn't have to dress up, and you sang hymns with people that lived on the street, and it was God. So then I got older, was not going to ever be Baptist, was never going to set foot in a Baptist church again, was never going to raise my children Baptist, and then God dropped a Baptist preacher's son in my lap. So all this to say, I have lived a lukewarm life. I have lived on the fence. I have never wanted to be that Christian, right? That person, that Bible beater. I've always wanted to be loving and accepting and be accepted from everyone else. So I lived on the fence. And about 3 years ago, God sent us to Maryland. I thought we were going for my husband's job, but we actually were going for God to jerk my neck and be like, all right, it's time. I've never lived outside of cultural Christianity, so I never really needed to defend what I believed or really even think what I believed, like to really understand what I believed. And we went to Maryland, and I saw where things would eventually go. And I was like, oh yeah, no, that's not okay. And then COVID hit, husband lost his job, we moved back to Charlotte. So all this to say, 5 months ago, let me back up. Spring of 2020, I will tell you that I was sitting on my couch watching the news, eating everything that came across like it was gospel, watching the COVID numbers. I was watching Cuomo's press conferences. I even looked at my husband and said, he should really run for president. I know. Bless my own heart, I know, right? So that was spring of 2020. Summer 2020 happened, and our country was going crazy. And I posted on Facebook about something, and then I saw one of my friends from high school post. Well, what happened was the George Floyd death. People were posting, and I saw a moment where people were all coming together to speak out about how his life, that shouldn't have happened. And it seemed like we were at a place where we could talk. And then something happened, and one of my friends from high school said, white people, shut up. And in that moment, I was like, but no, we need to all talk. We need to talk. We can't. And that's when I first experienced cancel culture. And y'all, all the people everybody was saying the same thing. We were all on the same page. This was a horrible, horrible thing that happened. And then it just went south. and everyone's cancel culture happened and all this, and I couldn't take it. I love people. I love people. I want people to get along. My children have grown up with people of all colors, and it's never been a thing. And now all of a sudden it was a thing again. What's happening? What is happening? You know, and I was like, I don't want this to happen. So then I started doing research, and I realized in my research, I first was introduced to CRT, and I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. This is making sense, what's going on here. So fast forward, my husband lost his job. We ended up back here, and I was sitting on my couch in my PJs and probably eating ice cream. And I just finally was like, I got to do something. I can't keep sitting here any longer and just letting this happen. I'm seeing families torn apart, people being torn apart because of the color of their skin. And it's like, so I love people. I want people to love each other. I want to know people who are different from than I am. Those are fun because it's interesting, because it's not the same. God made all of us. And we're all interesting in our own way. And that's amazing. And we should celebrate that. So, and we have to be able to talk. That was the thing. We have to be able to talk. So I started Moms for Liberty, went to my first school board meeting, and decided that because our school board, I knew it was going to be live streamed. And in studying CRT, I realized that we were in a truth crisis, basically. We were in a truth crisis. We were in a time where it's completely fine to question truth that has been true for millennia, but yet you can't question the narrative that's hot off the presses. Like, what is happening? And so I started seeking truth. I started seeking truth, and then I realized I had to make a stand. And God was like, you got to get off the fence. You just have to. I'm a people pleaser. I was raised to please. And I really like people to like me. And so I spent 9 months posting truth on Facebook, and y'all, people didn't like me. I lost so many friends, and I tried to be civil. I just wanted the truth. And I had questions. I had whys. I had lots and lots of questions. So I went to the school board meeting because I felt like I'm just going to hang my hat on truth. That's the hill I'm going to die on, is truth. And so I went to the school board meeting because I knew it was live streamed. I knew there had to be other mothers that were sitting on their couch, eating ice cream, scared to death. And if I could just get to them, the press wasn't helping me. So I'll go to the school board meeting and I will speak truth, and it will be live streamed, and hopefully somebody will hear it. And our school board meetings, I can't remember, it was like hundreds as far as views on YouTube. Well, that school board meeting, and it's not just because of me, there was a gang of 7 of us that were there at that school board meeting, and we now are friends and work together. And but we all spoke, and that school board meeting got taken down by YouTube. Typically school board meetings are in the hundreds. This school board meeting ended up getting viewed in the thousands. And then that was May. In June, we went back to the school board meeting. Now, at the May meeting, it was 7 of us in the rain, just standing there. We wanted our kids freed. And in June, we showed up, and there was people there that did not like us at all, and they were a huge number. So clearly, it was getting out that we were standing up. It's taken me a while to get used to that. I still really, really like for people to like me, but y'all, the best thing about this whole thing has been that God has shown up. And y'all, I'm not that kind of person. I don't walk around speaking, using, what I call it Christianese. I don't walk around speaking Christianese. I speak a little Spanglish, but no Christianese. And God has shown up in a way over and over. I would need more than 15 minutes. It's happened so frequently and almost daily to the point where it is statistically impossible for that many coincidences to happen. Everything I've needed, he's dropped in my lap. People are saying, you have so much success in the Union County Moms for Liberty chapter. And I'm like, I know it's great, but honestly, like it's y'all, it was not me. The only thing I did, I read an article once, and a quote in the article hit me. It was like a gut punch. Government goes to those who show up. And that has been kind of my motto. Actually, it is my motto because even the people who don't like me quote me saying it a lot and try to use it against me. But it does. And I had to come to the realization that I had not been showing up. A lot of us have not been showing up. I thought government was just for poli-sci people. You know, if you major in poli-sci, otherwise I'm just going to go do my thing with my family. And we weren't showing up. And because of that, I helped pave the way for the destruction of this country. I literally squandered what our forefathers, that they gave me as an inheritance. At one time at camp, the camp director said, if you're born in America, you hit the jackpot. And I agree, but we took it for granted. We just were like, oh, we're Americans, we're free. It just comes, you know, you get you come out of the womb, you get your birth certificate and your freedom. It never occurred to me that we had to maintain it. But what I'm here to tell you is that we're responsible for where this country is. It's up to us to fix it. So we have to show up. And we have to show up consistently, and we cannot stop. And if we show up, God will use us. And, I mean, y'all, I mess up all the time, and he still manages to use that stuff. I mean, if he can use some of my biggest mistakes, he can use anything. So even if you feel like you're just a mom or just a grandma or just a dad, no. Because all of those things are way bigger because we have God with us. So we're not just a mom. We're not just a dad. We can make change. We have to show up and get off the fence. Thank you. How was I on time? I have no idea.
You did great.
Is it on? Okay. So I'm going to do something a little different because I heard the other mom say she's chatty, and I know I'm chatty. So I'm going to start my timer, and you're going to hear it go off at 15 minutes. So I want to make sure that I'm on time and I'm respectful of the other speakers that we have. My name is Laura Zork. I am the National Director of Education Reform for Freedom Works. The most important title that I carry is that I am a mom. I just got back from Phoenix. I was out there, and I had a whole month to be home with the kids, right? And so I'm out in Phoenix, and I'm talking about I'm a mom, and I'm the mom of 4, and I start getting emotional. But, you know, it really is the fact that I do this for my kids, and the sacrifices that all us moms make to stand up for our kids. We do it. But we're giving up our time away from our families. But that's how important this is right now. That's how important this fight that we're in right now, just to preserve the foundation that our country was founded on, but even protect those freedoms that we know are so important for our kids to grow up with. Just like what Ronald Reagan said, we're one generation away. And I'm going to tell you, I traveled the entire country. They're after our kids. And I'd be darned that I'm going to stay at home in my little sheltered area. By the way, I do live in Vero Beach, Florida. I work out of D.C. as the national director. One of my requirements was, I'll take this job, but I'm not moving because my kids are grounded in their school, and I wanted to make sure that they were where they needed to be. But back in December, I come aboard full-time with Freedom Works as the National Director of Education Reform, and they asked me, they said, in education reform, what do you see is missing? What do you see that's not being done? And this was back in December, and I said, what's happening right now? What I see, because not only am I a mom, but in 2013, I was seeing the remnants of Common Core starting to come out into the States, and I lived in Florida, and we know who lived in Florida, the guy that was pushing it and getting ready to run for president. So I had a huge challenge ahead to really fight against Common Core in Florida. So myself and 3 other moms, we decided, and I apologize, I'm getting off my PowerPoint here too, and I'll make sure I try to keep on time here. But we knew we were up against a giant in Florida. We went to our legislators, we said, why are we implementing Common Core? Because we've never even seen it, we don't know what it is, and legislators are like, go back home. Basically, we're the experts, trust us, right? Well, what we were reading back then, just like what parents are seeing right now with CRT, was the truth. And these legislators and these people that we put in charge and we elected to represent us was not doing the research. It was the moms and dads that was doing the research. And that's exactly what we have to do. We want to trust our elected officials, but like Ronald Reagan says, trust but verify. We have to do our homework, and that's what we did. So in Florida, we were able to take that group of 4 moms, 4 mama bears, to 22,000 in 9 months. Now, why? Because we are organized. My background's in operations management, forensic accounting. They didn't know who they were up against at that time. So that was something that I took on, and then I ended up sitting on several education policy teams for the governor of Florida, and then I ran for school board. I just finished up my 4-year term, and we all have to do our duty and run for office. I'm going to tell you, it's an experience. But at the end of the day, where we are right now is the fact that we have to get organized. We have the groups of the teachers' unions. We have the teachers' unions that have lobbyists. We have the school board associations. The school board associations have lobbyists. We have the superintendent's association. The superintendent's association have lobbyists. And then they look at us parents and they say, why do you feel that you need to get together? Well, why do you feel like that you have to get together, right? And use our taxpayers' dollars to join the membership. But I tell you what, BEST is about building a national parent-led movement, because that's what it's going to take to really change the landscape of education here in America, is that every parent, I know we're busy, I know we have things that we need to be doing, but we have to be showing up to these school board meetings, because these decisions that are being made on the local level, and then they're saying, well, the state's telling me I can't do this, or so forth. You know, I hate to break the news to you, but a lot of that is false. What they want to do is they want to pass the buck. They don't want to take the reality. They don't want to take the ownership that they're making these decisions. So they're passing the buck up to the state. And that's why it's important for us to get involved. So we have created toolkits for parents. And I feel it's important with BEST. We don't create groups, we support groups. Moms for America, Moms for Liberty, no matter what your group is, We want to come in and we want to give you the tools and resources that we have so that your groups can be empowered in your area, because it's not about me coming from Florida or us coming from DC and telling you what you need, but we want to give you tools where you are and what you might be able to utilize. So we have started our parent empowerment toolkit, and I encourage each and every one of you to pick up this 40-page document in the back, because this is really a powerful tool for parents, especially if you're just starting a new group, just starting to get involved. And I always hated that word, activist. I always saw myself as an education advocate, but we know how you call me whatever you want, but we have the tools for you, so we'll go to the next. One of the most powerful things is we have to show up to these school board meetings, right? That's number one. But as group leaders, one thing that we have to identify is that it's hard to get parents there. The very first time to get them there is the hardest. If we can make it as easy as possible, remove every obstacle, every excuse, because I know myself, first couple of times I was invited to go to a meeting, I had that excuse, well, I don't know where it is, well, I don't know what time it is, and so I would always kept passing it on. We have to remove every obstacle. Not every parent knows where the district office is, they don't know what time it is, they don't know where to park. We have to be very specific when we send out these invites, okay? I'm gonna tell you, the more specific you get with these invites, the better it will be. And then if you want them to speak, because these are new parents, they've heard about the issues, they know they're bad, go ahead and prepare those talking points. Go ahead, don't write a thesis, because we're not gonna read the thesis, right? We'll read the talking points and we'll read some of the links for the resources, but be very clear on the messaging, because when you organize a group of parents to get to these school board meetings, you wanna be talking on the same talking points, because like you said, these meetings are televised, and you really wanna make sure that you're getting the message clear across, because more than likely there's other parents that are watching and they have already been told by their administrator that they're the only one at the whole school that has a problem with this. So, and that's happened to a lot of our moms, and I bet it's happened to you. You go in, you show an assignment, you talk about it. I have reservations about this for XYZ, and they'll say, Mrs. Zork, I appreciate you coming in, and I appreciate you bringing this to our attention, but you're the only parent we've heard from. That is not true. They're hearing from a lot of parents, but they're just really trying to diminish what your concerns. So by getting to these school board meetings and other parents hearing you speak, it validates all those reservations that they had. So it's so important, so powerful that we get as many of these parents to these meetings as possible. And we have in the book how to tackle these school board meetings. So I'm going to encourage you, because I'm way over my time, I know I am, because it's normally a 45-minute presentation I'm trying to get through. So we'll go to the next slide. There's some simple tips. I know it's organizing a rally. What I'm seeing across the country is that they don't want us there. So you have people that are going to be complaining that you're going to be hosting a rally. So you have to make sure every I is dotted and every T is crossed, because they're going to look for any reason to cancel your rally. So if you're going to have a rally, you make sure, do you have to have a permit? Do you have to have insurance? Where are your guests going to be parking? Because we had an event in Ohio where parents were coming out, and they were actually going to take a bus to another location, and the mall had got word of it. Someone complained. So here, 4 o'clock in the morning, parents are getting over there to get on the bus, and they wouldn't let them park the buses there because somebody had complained. So it was you know, they tried to just put those roadblocks in. So make sure when you're organizing these rallies, just know there's a lot of people out there that don't want you to have them. Just make sure you cover every base you can. Now, my motto is, if you go to the extent of having all your parents come to a school board meeting, you know you're going to have a good showing, you know you're going to have a good rally, you got to make a big deal of it. It has to get in the media. And there's ways that we work with group leaders so that you can get your voice out there. We're working with Arizona. We're working with Ohio, Pennsylvania, all these moms across the country that you're seeing come on Fox. Well, they've went through some of this training that I have right here, because there is power in putting together these press releases. We have some drafts in here. Now, if you're a group leader, it's very simple, but it's very powerful. And you get your word out, gets into your local media, gets into the local TV, then the national media picks it up. Now, you're thinking, is it about bringing attention to the group? No, it's about putting pressure on those elected officials, because as a school board member, I was the chair and worked with the superintendent hand in hand. They do not like negative media. They might get up there and act like they don't care, but they do care. So we're going to use the media to our benefit, and I want you to learn how to write a press release. Every time you have a great turnout that you're planning at a school board meeting, or any time that you're planning on having a rally, make sure that you get this out. The next one. Okay, a press statement. A lot of dumb things are happening. School boards are making some really bad decisions. And you can go to the meeting. You need to keep going to the meeting. But as group leaders, you need to get in the habit of writing a press statement, release a statement of your response. Moms for Liberty. We think XYZ about the decision that was made last night about the mask. And give some little details, and there's some samples in here, and then what that does, it gets your voice out there, that the voice of the parent is really being heard, even though you only get your 3 minutes over at the school board meeting. But this is another way to push out your message. Next. Protecting parents' rights. This is the biggest, and I apologize if I'm repeating myself. I was a little late coming in here. Protecting parents' rights, next. One of the biggest things that we're seeing across the country, how parents are really understanding what's being taught in our schools, is through the FOIA request. Another word for it is public records request. There's procedures that you take. There's keywords. There's ways you have to go about this. We want you to get in the habit, when you're at these school board meetings and they're approving certain things, certain contracts, even FOIA that. Do a public records request. That's your right as citizens to know what their request or what they're approving, and also what your tax dollars are going for. How many in here has done a FOIA request or a public records request? Okay. Well, here's some homework I'm going to give you. I want you to do a FOIA request this week on your school district. I don't care what it is. Just write it out, because there's steps. You have to get used to who is the person you contact, who do you go to, how long does it take? Because when that time comes and you really need that information, that's not the time to try to start figuring this out. Go ahead and practice now. Say, I'd like to see, even if it's, send me the training that you have for the teachers on diversity, equity, and inclusion over the summer. You know, if you don't have anything right now you want to do a FOIA request on, practice on something like that. But this is how our parents across the country are really discovering what's being taught in the classroom, is through these FOIA requests, and we have to keep doing them, okay? FERPA, Loudoun County, Virginia. We had the school board member who went on Facebook and said, because she didn't like the fact parents were coming to the school board meetings and speaking out against CRT, so she got her friends together on the school board. They got on a private Facebook group, had teachers get on the Facebook group, and they said, okay, you know who these parents are, where do their kids go to school, where do they work, what's their address, asking the teachers to post this, right? Well, these parents need to be doing a FOIA complaint, or I'm sorry, a FERPA complaint, which is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, where they are giving out identifiable information on these kids, and they need to be held accountable for that. And so we can do that through these FERPA. And I really encourage you to study what these are, because there's a lot more to it, but these are some tips on how we can protect our rights as parents. And I'm going to tell you, these educators do not like getting turned into FERPA. Next. And I know this one is hard to see, ethics complaint against educators, because we love our teachers, right? But there's some bad apples out there, and nobody's listening to parents. But the way that we can, if you go to your district and you go to your administrator and you know that they're discriminating against your child or segregating your child or putting your child in another area because they're not wearing the mask or whatever reason it is, I want you to get familiar with how to file an ethics complaint, because we're going to have to hold these educators accountable, because every group out there, we have the Zen Education Group, we have the American Federation of Teachers, we have the National Education Association that's saying it doesn't matter what the law says, go ahead and do it. So that's what they're pushing out to our teachers. Well, we're going to hold them accountable for that, and we're going to rush through this. Really stay informed. Keep coming to things like this. There's CRT, woke terms in the back of this booklet. Know these key terms. Start FOIA or public record requesting some of these key terms in your district. But really the power is, as parents, is educate yourself on these issues, because our legislators aren't educating themselves, nor are our school board members. And if they're not going to listen to you folks, it's time that we step up to the plate. And it's time, just like me, the mom that my voice would shake so badly that my kids thought I was crying when I get up to the microphone. Literally, my little Chandler, I took him to a meeting and he's like, "Are you okay, Mom?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Chandler, why?" "Because I thought you were up there crying." I'm like, "No, Chandler, that's just Mommy's nervous voice." But, and I tell you, if I can do this, if I know each and every one of you, moms and dads, grandparents, community members, we have to take our school boards back if they're not going to listen to us. And so, through BESS, we do have a free training 6 weeks long for anybody that wants to run for school board. Jump on this training. It's every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And even if you think you're not going to run, I've had moms get on there. Maybe I shouldn't tell you this, but had moms get on there because I'm like, get on there so you know what to look for when you want to identify a leader to promote, to be a, push for, to be a school board candidate. And I've had 2 moms come back to me and say, I got on there and I filed. So really what it does, it boosts your confidence, because you see that this is the time you're being called. Just like I was called, I know that moms and dads, God's calling us to step up to the plate, and He's calling us to take our place, because we are the parents, and we might send our kids to a government public school, but parents, that does not mean the moment our children walk into that front door, we hand over our rights to the government, right? And this is the time, and I just really appreciate Moms for America inviting me here, and I've enjoyed spending some time with you. But come back here. Go back in the back and get your booklet.
Okay, so I'm going to fire hose you right now. So I want everybody to just stand up, take a deep breath, because we are on the home stretch. There's just a couple more of us, and being a mom of 5, I need to make sure everybody has a little bit more energy in them. All right, so take your deep breath. All right, now you can sit down and get ready for me to fire hose you. So my name is Tanya Shellnut. I'm the State Government Relations Director for an organization called Alliance Defending Freedom. In fact, we helped Donica when she was working through her HB2. What we're seeing right now is that our courage is being tested in this culture. Government was formed to protect freedom, not threaten it. Passing laws that infringe on these basic freedoms undercuts freedoms for all Americans. You all know the Ronald Reagan quote, so I'm not going to take the time to repeat it, but it's our responsibility to protect our freedoms for the next generation. What we're seeing, though, is there's a frightening reality that there's an increasing number of activist officials more than willing to use the law to silence and punish those of us that disagree with them. Alliance Defending Freedom is the world's largest Christian legal organization. We are committed to protecting religious freedom, free speech, marriage and family, parental rights, and sanctity of life. For the last 26 years, we've been defending your most cherished liberties in Congress, state legislatures, courtrooms all across the country, and all the way to the Supreme Court if necessary. Some of our founders are, who knows Dr. James Dobson? Okay, so he wrote The Strong-Willed Child for my 5 kids, because I have 5 of them. Bill Bright, Larry Burkett, Dr. Kennedy. Those are some of our founders. There's 5 prongs to the work that we do: legal, legislative, communications, international, and alliance building. And I'm going to run through some of those right now. In our legal capacity, in our legal prong that we work with over 3,700 allied attorneys throughout the country, training them on constitutional law and a biblical worldview. We train law students and those considering entering the legal and culture-shaping professions throughout Blackstone Legal Fellowship and our Arete Academy. We've trained over 2,500 students, and in fact, I know there's a fellow here. You stand up, yep. We have an ADF fellow here today. And how's that? God just doing that. So we trained her. If you want to find out if we're any good, just talk to her. We've played a role in 62 Supreme Court victories. It's really important to understand that the Supreme Court only usually takes up about 1% of cases, and Alliance Defending Freedom has played a lead role in over 13 of those with a 90% win record. So we've been very blessed by God to be able to do that. And then in the courtroom across the land, we have over an 80% win record. We are dedicated to winning. And I'm just going to share quickly some of our notable cases that some of you might be familiar with. There's a young lady by the name of Selena Sewell out of Connecticut. She's a track star who lost her spots on the podium by a biological man. Then we have the Downtown Hope Center in Anchorage, Alaska, that's allowing biological men to come into this women's shelter where these vulnerable women were trying to be served, and you're allowing biological men to come in because of a SOGI ordinance. Excuse me. We have the high school teacher who was fired for his pronoun use. We have the teacher in Virginia. The speaker before me spoke a little bit about Loudoun County. He was suspended for voicing objections to a proposed policy forcing school district and staff to deny truth about what it means to be male and female during a public comment period. We're taking care of his case. How about the cake baker who was forced to create a custom wedding cake that celebrates messages that violates his conscience in Colorado? College students in South Carolina were told they couldn't form a conservative group and that they needed to come up with another idea. Those are some of the clients that we're serving. And then in our second prong is our legislative prong. Alliance Defending Freedom has been working in the courtrooms all across the country and have taken not a very proactive role in legislative efforts. But in 2019, we beefed up our team, and we have a team of 10, and that's where I serve as the State Government Relations Director. And on that team, we work with legislators to create laws that support our generational wins. We provide resources for policymakers and for coalition groups. We do legislative drafting. So I'll talk in a minute about some of the bills that we work on. And consultation. Our constitutional attorneys work with these legislators to share with them about, what the legalities of the bill that they're proposing. Will it get through? Will it not get through? We provide testimony in front of our Senate and our legislatures. We do this at the state level and at the federal level. I specifically work at the state level. I cover the whole country because there's only one of me, but I actually am here in South Carolina, so if you need anything, please reach out. We also provide messaging support and toolkits. We want to make sure that our legislators and our coalition groups know how to speak into these issues, because not only do we want to win in the courtroom, but we have to win in the courtroom of public opinion. And so we want to make sure what we're talking about resonates with people and that we don't sound like we're completely off the rails. Some of the pieces of legislation that we work on, one in particular, Save Women's Sports. Who ever thought we would be in a day and age where we are allowing biological men to compete in women's sports? We are very much a sports family at my house. My daughter got her graduated from college playing softball and basketball. She's now currently serving our country working in Washington, D.C. But it was those moments in her college sports career that prepared her to be in the swamp, right? So we're very thankful for that. So we're now taking away opportunities for young girls and women because we're allowing biological men to compete. South Carolina couldn't even get that through. Yes, we'll talk about that later. I'll be in the back. We're also, that's a whole nother conversation I don't have time for. We're passing laws that protect free speech. South Carolina has no speech protections at all on any of our universities. South Carolina, are you kidding me? Medical rights of conscience. We have seen what the coronavirus has done to our medical system. We have doctors and med students leaving the profession because they're being forced to violate their conscience. And so we've got to make sure that we're putting forth legislation that protects rights of conscience. And we have life bills, we have adoption bills, we have gender identity treatment for minor bills. We're working on critical race theory because we know that this is an issue and we've been doing polling on that. Those are some of the pieces in our legislative prong. In our communications prong, I already spoke about that. We are sending our clients to the Supreme Court. And if you're going to go in front of the Supreme Court, you need to make sure that the message that you're going to share resonates with the people. So we spend thousands and thousands of dollars on message testing to make sure that that message sticks. And so we want, in our communications department, we're making sure that we play a key impact in the cultural debates through that messaging, and that we pay big dollar for that. The third prong is our international prong. We have we're headquartered in Vienna. Our international team is headquartered in Vienna, and we have an office at the UN. So we have an office in Washington, D.C., and an office in New York City. Our home office is in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we have an office in Atlanta, Georgia, and then we work in the international front as well. And then the fourth component, actually the fifth, I'm just moving so fast. Are you guys still with me? I'm making time for Chris, that's what I'm doing, because what he's got to say is really important. But the fifth component is the alliance building component of it. Religious freedom is the bedrock principle upon which our nation was founded. This principle must be defended and advanced for the betterment of all people and the flourishing of the next generation. We cannot do it alone. I think if there's anything you hear today, and it has been the message from every speaker, is you are not alone. And the more that we can come together and unite for the common good, that's what we're here for. We are here to make sure that we are we leave behind a legacy of hope and courage for the next generation. In 2012, I was busy taking care of my 5 children and helping my husband with our business and serving in our church. I had no clue what was happening around me other than hearing my husband yell at the TV and the radio. I knew there was a problem. Houston, and I'd be like, Rich, we're good, just relax. And this was about the time Common Core was happening. Most of you, we talked a little bit about that today. And I became involved with a group called Concerned Women for America. It is the nation's largest women public policy group. It's biblically based. I had no idea about public policy. And I went to our state legislature and dove in, and I began to see corruptness everywhere. When both sides are trying to pass legislation that benefits them and their pockets, I knew we were in trouble. Everyone around me had already known it, but God had used that moment to wake me up. And I couldn't sit by and watch it go down because, you see, like you spoke about your grandmother, my great-grandmother used to come and spend time with us. And on occasion, she would tell me stories. And one of those stories that she told me was a catalyst for my motivation to be courageous and speak up. And it was during one of the days during the Great Depression that she was in. And she only wanted one thing for her birthday. You know what it was? Butter. I didn't get it at the time when she told me that story. But my great-grandmother went on to be a school teacher. And she would walk miles in the bitter Wyoming winters to get to her schoolhouse early enough to warm that schoolhouse and prepare it for the children by the means of coal. Then she went on to become a principal. And currently today has a school named after her, an elementary school named after her in Basin, Wyoming. That's a legacy of courage. If she could endure all of that, then I certainly could get out of my comfort zone knowing what the next generation needed from me. And so today I just have one action item for you. In the back, I have these contact cards at my table. If you fill it out, I can help keep you abreast on what's happening, particularly in South Carolina and North Carolina from a state legislative front, but you will also get updates on what's happening around the country on the legal front. And so if you have any concerns, we have a ton of different resources I can help you with. I don't have the time to go through them right now because I'm going to hand it over here to Chris. But we're here, we're standing in the gap with you, and I'm so thankful that you're courageous enough to be here today for this event. So thank you.
When you're short and fat, coming up those stairs is pretty rough. Whew. Well, hello, mamas. Have you had a good time today? Come on, have you had a good time? I am very excited to be with a group of mamas. This is a great day for me. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. My name is Chris Hughes, and I'm with an organization called the Citizens for America Foundation, and I have a podcast called The Christian Perspective with Chris Hughes. I won't ask you to clap for who's listened to that, but I want you to look me up and subscribe to The Christian Perspective with Chris Hughes. We have national guests every week that talk about issues that you need to know about that are going on in the culture today. So look it up. Okay, mamas, I got to give a disclaimer, and then we are going to jump in. If you have a pen and a notepad, get it out, because we're going to cover a lot of material, and you're going to want to write some of this down. Now, I don't know, a few of you may have children with you. I'm going to cover some pretty graphic material, okay? So you're being warned, heads up, you're going to hear things you've never heard in a church before. I let the pastor know. But I want to tell you, even though you're going to say, what in the world did he just show? Because there's going to be pictures. Yes, we did it. Okay, so there are going to be pictures behind me. Moms, I have blurred out the places that need to be blurred out. but it's still graphic, okay? I'm still giving you time to leave, all right? It's graphic, but what you need to know is your 6 and 7-year-olds are seeing this in school, okay? So what I'm showing you is going to shock you, but your kids across the nation are seeing this in school, and you need to know what's coming, all right? Everybody warned? Last chance to leave? Here we go. Over 200 years ago, there was an event that was about to take place. It was such an event that it called for a warning. A warning had to go out. The need was absolutely urgent as over 700 troops were in Boston, and they were in the harbor in their ships at night. And the city of Boston slept unaware, unprepared, unbeknown, unknowing that the British were coming that very night. Late on the chilly evening of April 18, 1775, 700 British troops were lined up in Boston to march through the streets. Their goal was to go to the waterfront, to board rowboats, to row across the St. Charles River, and then launch an attack on Lexington and Concord. While all of Boston slept, one man kept watch, remaining alert to the still of the night, wide-eyed to the approaching dangers. Paul Revere was a man who refused to sleep. Across the town, there was another man you may not know about. His name was Dr. Joseph Warren. Dr. Warren was organizing the Patriot activities. He was the Donica Hudson of our day, organizing the patriotic activities that were going on in Boston. He knew a messenger had to be sent at once to Lexington and Concord and warn them of the impending danger. So he sent for Paul Revere. The plan was simple. Paul Revere was to row ahead of the British troops and to ride throughout the night to Lexington and Concord and wake up the citizens and warned them of what was coming. He rushed off to the old church. He woke up the sexton, and he quietly told the sexton to hang 2 lanterns in the belfry. You've already probably heard the story, and the patriots across the river would see the light, and they would know that the British were coming that very night by boat. He made it to the waterfront, and amazingly, 2 of his friends had made it there to meet him. They had rowed across the river, and they had gone just past a big British warship called the Somerset that was patrolling the river, and they were not caught. He got on the boat, he went to the other side, and other friends had a horse waiting for him there. And I can just picture in my mind, riding off in the dark of the night, his coattails and hair blowing in the wind as he raced off to warn the people. Paul Revere stopped at every farmhouse along the way, and he skidded to a halt, and he ran up to the door and he pounded, "Wake up! The British are coming." Of course, the Minutemen rallied and answered the call, and finally he made it to Lexington. All were warned, and by the time the Redcoats marched into Lexington Green, a sleeping nation had been aroused, and the Revolutionary War had begun. Now, I'm not Paul Revere this afternoon, but I have a deep burden and passion in my heart to tell everybody I know that we need to wake up. Wake up, because the people that hate your God are coming for you. Wake up, because the most anti-God, anti-American mob in the history of our nation is coming to try to destroy this great nation. They're coming to end your freedom of religion. They're coming to murder millions more. They've already murdered over 65 million babies through abortion, and they want to murder millions more. They're coming to destroy biblical marriage and traditional family, and they're coming to silence you from expressing your biblical values. They're coming to sexualize and destroy your children. And I'm here to challenge you today to wake up. Look around you. Very few parents today are raising their children. In most cases, both parents have to work. The little ones are put in daycare, and then as they get older, many times they're placed in the public school system, and they're being indoctrinated with a liberal and anti-God philosophy. Most parents aren't raising their children today. The culture is raising most children in America's society today. Today's culture and our public school system tells our kids that they can be whatever they want to be. You're a homosexual. You're a transgender. You were born in the wrong body. Our schools have become the conduit of the liberal left to sexualize our children and to confuse their genders and to teach them to hate themselves. Their goal is to indoctrinate our children with liberal beliefs about the world and especially about sex. They teach our children that there's no foundation in the Bible, that the Bible is a myth. It's not true. The National Education Association and groups are doing everything in their power to normalize bizarre in our children's public schools. Now, I'm sure that most of you have heard about Drag Queen Story Hour. Y'all heard about that? Drag queen story hours happening all over across the nation, where transsexual drag queens go into public schools and they read sexually suggestive stories promoting the transgender agenda to our children as young as 3 years old while dressed in drag. Now, the purpose of these presentations is to normalize these deviant behaviors, to teach our children to accept transgenderism as normal, and to encourage our kids to dress as the opposite sex. It's an indoctrination of our youngest children, and it's happening in schools all across America today. In Oregon, children can not only make their own decisions, but they can make the decision to have a sex change, and it's subsidized by the government, and they don't have to have parental consent to do it. Our children are being recruited in public schools to become transgender. And y'all, this has happened in light speed over the last year. I encourage you to consider homeschooling your children. Why would you want to send your children to a place that is anti-Christian, normalizes the bizarre, and makes your children susceptible to sexual abuse? Public schools are a dangerous place for our children. Our children are being indoctrinated with pagan sexuality and deviant sexual behavior. They're being taught to mock the traditional family of one man being married to one woman for life, because that's how God designed marriage. And by the way, marriage is not a function of government. Marriage was created by God, and He says what marriage is. Don't tell me that Christians shouldn't be involved in the political process. And don't tell me that elections don't matter, because they do. Our legislators and local school boards have passed laws and mandates to take education from our children out of the hand of parents and placed it in the hands of teachers' unions and liberal educators. The Obama administration implemented something that goes way beyond what we always called sex ed, and it's probably something that many of you have never heard of. It's called the Comprehensive Sexuality Education Curriculum. The main emphasis of this government-funded curriculum is to teach children, even at 4 years of age, okay, now we're getting graphic, last chance to leave, okay? Even at 4 years of age, to have sexual pleasure, first with themselves, 4-year-olds, and then with others. 4- and 5-year-old children are being taught to feel and play with themselves, and they're told that you should masturbate because masturbation feels good. 4 and 5 years old. By second grade, our kids are being taught that they can experience an even higher level of pleasure if they allow others to perform those same acts upon them. Our kids are being taught that any kind of sex is normal, whatever you want to do, and could and should be enjoyed. Just do what feels good. The real goal of these evil people is to destroy what the Bible teaches as a traditional family by confusing our children and awakening sexual desires, ladies, that really should be reserved for marriage. The LGBTQ rights are also a core tenet of this curriculum that's funded with your tax dollars. This culture wants to destroy our children's identity by doing away with any recognition of masculinity or femininity. The government-funded mandated program is designed to sexualize children, removing their normal sexual inhibitions and teaching them to support abortion and to push for sexual rights. The Common Sexuality Education Curriculum encourages kids to read a book. This book, and you can look it up, and now you're going to see graphic pictures, a warning once again, okay? This book is called It's Perfectly Normal, which is a graphic sexual book for 4th graders. It is pornography, and it shows children engaged in graphic sex in great detail. The book has graphic pictures for 4th graders, which shows children masturbating and in various sexual acts. 4th grade, okay? The detailed and graphic pictures show heterosexuals and homosexuals engaging in sexual acts. There are over 1 million copies of this book in the United States today, and most of them are in elementary school libraries. And it is recommended reading with your federal government funding for 10-year-olds in our nation today. Making a Difference is another federally funded program that tells kids that it's okay to express their feelings through things like masturbation, anal sex, touching each other's genitals, having oral sex, and encouraging masturbation. And this one, they all made me sick. This next one really disgusted me. And I watched part of this, which made me literally sick as I prepared for this. The G-Spot is an animated cartoon made for young children, and it's sent to our schools by Planned Parenthood, and it introduces children to sexual topics. The show, as you can see, is hosted by an animated penis and vagina. In the episode, How Pregnancy Happens, these two characters engage and talk about how to have sex in many different places. The penis character gets repeatedly excited, and this isn't a cartoon your little children are watching. And he gets aroused over and over throughout the cartoon, and kids actually see him ejaculate in the cartoon that's being showed in public schools. And this is funded with your tax dollars and taught to your elementary school children. Again, I'm not trying to offend you, but we need to wake up and know what's going on in our schools today. Get Real is a federally funded program in public schools. The Get Real program teaches our kids that it's okay to be pansexual or to be queer. Planned Parenthood provides schools with LGBTQ education program that's called Include. The Include curriculum incorporates queer and trans issues into every facet of instruction in the schools. It teaches our children to pick an identity like asexual gay teen, trans boy of color, an undocumented queer boy. And it even teaches them to have sexual relationships with multiple partners. And these are elementary school kids. The curriculum is for 14-year-olds for that. In California, Planned Parenthood is going into classrooms and giving children handouts to tell them how to negotiate sexual encounters with other students. In Nevada, Planned Parenthood, and y'all thought they just did abortion. No, we're not doing enough abortions, so let's sexualize the kids so they'll all get pregnant and we'll give them more abortions. It's wrong. Sorry, I'm going to start preaching. In Nevada, Planned Parenthood is coming to classrooms and negotiating sexual encounters between 13 and 14-year-olds. And some of these lesson plans are being taught to kids include statements like, do you want to come back to my room? Can I take your shirt off? It makes me hot when you touch me there. Can I do that? Is it okay if I take my pants off? These are all statements that they're being taught to use when they go out with their boyfriend or girlfriend. In the school workbook, Dry Humping Saves Lives, it teaches that masturbation is healthy and natural. And in fact, the lesson plan says that masturbation is a great way to kill your extra time. It teaches your children to use sex toys in front of a mirror and even encourage you to allow other people to watch you as a child use sex toys upon you. The book says that there's no universal right and wrong, that everything differs from person to person, and that's okay. The book goes on to tell you that we know that some of you say, quote, my parents say, yes, it's a bad idea, but I think that it's right for me. And if you think it's right for you, the curriculum teaches you, then you should go ahead and do it. The goal of common sexuality education is to get our children to act out when they see these books. These materials show our children graphic images that they cannot even legally see in a movie theater for a rated R movie. Their goal is to deconstruct the family. And common sexuality education is taught without consent and in most cases without the knowledge of parents even knowing that it existed. And I imagine most of you didn't know. In the program called Put It On, okay, again, warning, you might want to close your eyes. In a program called Put It On, they teach 9-year-olds how to wear a condom. They hand out plastic penises to 6- and 7-year-olds and encourage them to play with them and learn how to put condoms on. 6 and 7 years old. This is an actual picture of a teacher teaching a class how to put a condom on a boy with your mouth. And she is doing it in front of students in a classroom. Under President Obama, the federal government approved $100 million to promote common sexuality education. President Trump, the one that some of you didn't like that tweeted, stopped it. President Biden reinstated it. Not only did he reinstate it, but under President Biden, he increased the budget by $130 million. Again, don't tell me that elections don't have consequences. So what does comprehensive sexuality education teach? How to consent to sex. It normalizes anal and oral sex. And it tells them, by the way, that that's not really sex. It promotes sexual and bisexual behavior. It teaches children various sexual behaviors and how to enjoy self and mutual masturbation. And it works very hard to undermine the parents. Moms, we are seeing the sexualization of our children through culture, education, and even in healthcare. Pornography is another real issue for our children that they face today on a daily basis. A recent poll showed that of 2,000 teens, nearly 75% had received pornographic direct messages, meaning coming through Facebook or text message or whatever, from strangers, even if they had a private account. 55% of victims of sex trafficking in 2015 met their abuser through a website or a text. And I want to encourage you to be looking out on your kids' phones and watch out for something called Tinder, which is really designed for sexual connections. Did you know there's over 45 million images of children being abused and raped on the internet today? It's all right there for your kids to see when they're allowed to get on the internet unsupervised. You shouldn't have a computer set up in your kid's bedroom. Put it in a public room where you can see what's going on in that computer when they're working. There's so much happening on the legislative and judicial front to push the sexualization of our children. In the courts, a federal appeals court has ruled that it's sex discrimination to bar students from using a bathroom of the opposite of sex if they identify as that gender. You heard talk a while ago about athletics for women. You know, that's always been a big priority over the last 20 years to encourage athletic opportunities for women. But you know what? Now they got transgender men competing as women. I want to tell you, it disgusted me to see men who could not beat other men in competition pretend to be women, and I'm going to get in trouble for this, and compete in the Olympic Games because they couldn't beat men and compete against women, and it disgraced me to see my nation participating in that in the Olympics just a few weeks ago. A judge in Madison ruled that children can change their identity at school without parental consent. It goes on to ban staff and teachers from telling parents if a student makes that change at school. That's why organizations like Tanya's are so important. Today's court system is being inundated with gender issues. On the legislative front, you need to be on the watch for the top priority of the Biden administration. It's called the Equality Act. What is the Equality Act? They're promoting the Equality Act and saying it's something like the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and that your sex identification is the same as race. And I'm sorry, but it's not. The Equality Act claims make sexual orientation and gender identity as classes that would be protected from discrimination, just like race. Comprehensive sexuality education will probably become a nationally mandated curriculum, and it already is in many states, if the Equality Act becomes law on a national level. Moms, public schools should not become a place where our children are exposed to radical sexual ideology. But that's exactly what they become. The passage of the Equality Act could lead to nationwide curriculum, a nationwide transgender sports policy, a nationwide transgender shower and bathroom policy as well. It could lead to teachers losing their jobs if they don't refer to students by their preferred pronouns, whether the parents know what their preferred pronoun is or not at school. Another piece of legislation that's being pushed by the transgender movement is something they call affirmative care. Have y'all heard of that? Affirmative care says that if a child questions his or her identity, that the child should be allowed to transition to the opposite sex through physical interventions on their body. There's legislation currently being proposed all over the country to not inform parents if their children want to change their identity at school, of the opposite sex, or if they want hormones, or if they want an abortion, or even if they want sex change surgery. There's some legislation being proposed to not tell parents until it's after it's over. Moms, this is insanity. And we've got to put a stop to it. Children's young brains are not fully developed till the age of 25. These kids don't have any concept of what it means to have an intimate sexual relationship. They don't understand the consequences of fertility and sex change operations that can make them infertile for life. So what can you do as moms? Well, you can raise awareness with your friends in your church and even your friends at school. You can learn what sex education curriculum is being taught in your school system where you live. You can contact your school board and identify what curriculum they're using. and get to know your school board members. Identify the leaning of your school board members and your state legislators so you can find allies and also know who the enemies are of your children. You can educate and mobilize other parents, as you've learned about today. You can write letters to the editor. You can show up to school board meetings. You can present your kids, be present at your kids' school. Goodness, parents. I want to tell you, for the years my kids were in school, I was one of the few parents that ever showed up. You need to know what's going on at the school. You need to know who their friends are, and you need to get to know their teachers. You have a right to be there, and you can be there. An organization that Donna can tell you about is called Compassion to Act, and they have a safety online pledge that you can go and sign where they will help you see things that you can learn about protecting your children from pornography online. And you can even invite me to come to your church to speak, and I will try not to be as graphic at your church if you don't want me to be. Because moms, it is time to wake up. If we don't protect our children, how can we call ourselves followers of Jesus Christ? How can we? Jesus was not neutral when it came to protecting children. Read your Bible, it was very clear. Jesus would never say that it's okay for children to pick one of many genders. Jesus would not be happy with us as parents giving instruction of our children away to pagans and sexual deviants. Look at God's word. God does not affirm sexual relationships outside of biblical marriage, period. God's design is one man and one woman for life. Moms, it's time for us to wake up, to take a stand against the assault on our children. And I challenge you today to make a bold stand for righteousness, to get registered to vote. Over 40 million so-called Christians in the United States are not registered to vote, and we're bowing to the desires of less than 5% of our population. Elections matter. Get educated, get registered to vote, and get activated. Stand up for the Word of God. Stand up for godly principles. And go to the citizensforamericafoundation.com so you can learn to help join me as we impact the culture for Jesus. God bless you.
Testing. How's it going so far? Do you feel equipped? Are you getting a lot of resources? For one, I can't wait to get back to some of these tables, so make sure that when we're done, because you're almost there, I'm last and then Julien's going to wrap it up, that you get your resources across the back. Our goal has been for you to be able to fight the battles and have everything that you need. So I hope you're feeling equipped. You know, as I've looked at everything, and Chris, that was fantastic, even though I'm sure if you're like me, you still feel sick inside right now. Okay, so at the end of this, I want you to know I'm going to share some hope because I did spend time with God. And he did said, I want you to give the moms hope because when they hear everything that you're going to say and what Chris and others have said to expose the evil, which we're called to do, we need some hope. But we can't fight what we don't know. We can't fight an unseen enemy if we don't expose it. So bear with me. Keep your pencils and pens out. And I'm going to give you some things. Everything that I have footnoted it. I don't have time to give you all of my sources, but if you come back to my table, I will. Today at the Carolinas Summit for Moms for America, we're not only mobilizing you to protect and fight for your kids, but we're also empowering you to take authority in your communities. Many of you are going to be called. Some of you, God may have already been pricking your hearts and speaking to you about what he's calling you to do. You may be called to run for office. You may be called to start a cottage group. You may be called to stay where you are, and he's given you strategy through what Laura shared of how you can do it better when you go to these board meetings. But God is moving. That's why you're here. So we've heard about the sexualization of children, comprehensive sex ed, forced vaccines, forced masking that you've been fighting at the school board meetings, and Marxist indoctrinations from ideologies like CRT, or critical race theory, and Black Lives Matter, BLM, aimed at causing our children to hate each other, to hate their own skin color, to hate America, and to even hate our founding fathers and our Constitution. But the point I want to make, because we all know, we can see this battle in the natural. We're all fighting it. But it is a spiritual battle. And when we know that, we can also fight it spiritually. Because you don't win a war if you don't fight it in the spirit realm first. The front of my book has a picture of George Washington kneeling in prayer. Do you know he had 4 undeniable bullet holes in his jacket? But he was never hit. That's divine protection. That's divine deliverance. And God will meet you where you are with what he's calling you to do. So I want to encourage you. Intercessors for America leader Dave Cabal puts it this way. The movements we see across the nation are not just differences in approach or a slight philosophical perspective. We can say without a doubt the critical race theory movement and those similar to it are anti-God and amount to spiritual warfare. When children are being told that they should hate people of another race for the color of their skin, that is demonic. When children are being told that their born gender is not who they really are, that is demonic. When indoctrination of employees and students force them to accept an ideology that is anti-God, that is demonic. It's spiritual warfare, and we know that fighting it takes not only action, but strategic prayer. This clip that we're going to roll in just a second from the Hamilton Corner broadcast, it's entitled, "The BLM, or Black Lives Matter, Connection to Witchcraft." We'll show you just how much that we're in a spiritual battle. In the clip, Hamilton, and I love Hamilton, he plays a recording of BLM co-founder Patriotic Students who states, "We are trained Marxists." Hamilton goes on to point out how BLM is spiritual and not just a social justice movement. He also exposes the spiritual Marxist movement from the founder of BLM. Hamilton begins this clip by quoting Patriotic Students. Roll the clip, please. There's no sound.
She and other BLM co-founders are trained Marxists. She says, quote, there are many, she said, quote, I'm calling for spirituality to be deeply radical. We're not just having a social justice movement. This is a spiritual movement. Oh, end quote. Spiritual movement. What does she mean by that? I'm so glad you asked. I'll start. And all of the audio I'm about to share with you now, well, I see the disrespectful clock, so this is going to carry over to the next segment, is a Zoom-like conversation between 2 women. One of them is named Dr. Melina Abdullah, that she is a professor of African Studies at California State University, Los Angeles. She's having a Zoom-type conversation with Patriotic Students. Let me welcome you into their little conversation where she admits, maybe I'm saying too much. Listen to Dr. Melina Abdullah, who's also, in addition to being a professor at California State University, Los Angeles, she's also the founder of the BLM Los Angeles chapter of the organization. Please play clip number 1.
Maybe I'm sharing too much, but we become very intimate with the spirits that we call on regularly, right? Like each of them seems to have a different presence and personality. You know, I laugh a lot with Waukesha, you know, and I didn't meet her in her body, right? I met her through this work.
Oh, Lord. She said she laughs a lot with Waukesha, who she didn't meet in her body. So where'd you meet? You laughing with Waukesha, where did y'all meet? You're going to find that Dr. Abdullah and Patriotic Students talks about summoning the spirits of the dead, using the power of the spirits of the dead in order to give them the ability to do what they're calling the so-called justice work. You're going to find that what they're describing is their adherence to the Yoruba religion of Ifa or Ifa, to where they are summoning dead spirits. If you think I'm laughing.
So Colors goes on in this video to talk about when they go and they stand on the blood of the slain and they say, speak the name, and they start chanting. You all have seen that, right? Have you seen that on TV or have you been there? What they're doing is they're chanting. They say they're standing on the blood of the slain and they're chanting to resurrect the dead spirits to those, so that those spirits can work through them. And that when they stand there and chant the name, that spirit of the person becomes present with them to protest. Now, those of us who know the Bible understand this is witchcraft and that that's demonic, okay? So now are you beginning to see that this is a spiritual battle? Were anybody shocked about this? I was. I didn't realize it went that deep. This summer, 2 days before I spoke at the Moms for America Anaheim Mom Rise Summit, Fox News exposed the Biden administration for funding a CRT training in our school systems that sends white teachers to racist training therapy to stop spirit murdering black and brown students. Now, the reason I'm going over this with Black Lives Matter and CRT is for you to understand the Marxist roots and how this is really a spiritual battle. My good friend, Dr. Carol Swain, is a brilliant black former professor of political science and law at Princeton and Vanderbilt. And Carol said the main tenet of CRT is that the people of the world are divided into oppressors and oppressed. And in the United States, all white people are considered oppressors who benefit from undeserved advantages. Swain also states, inciting racism serves the political interest of the Democrats, who use the CRT to sow divisions between races in order to secure the black votes that they need to maintain their power. Anytime some progress is made with race relations, it makes black people feel that like there is so much racism, and it blames Republicans or white people for being guilty of this racism. Swain says they are creating a very dangerous situation in this country because they're demonizing all white people, including themselves and their own children, she said, adding that hatred, once unleashed, cannot easily be put back in the box. Now, we've said earlier that CRT and BLM are rooted in Marxism. The globalists are using Marxism in what you and I are fighting in our school system, CRT and BLM. They're using that to destroy America and to move us toward a one world government or a new world order. And this movement is known as the Great Reset. Has anybody heard of this? Okay, good. Good. People are waking up and understanding. I can't believe this has been going on for so many decades and fighting at a grassroots level. That what is behind it, the Great Reset. Because we're dealing with the fruit when we go to these board meetings. But we need to get to the root as well. The root is the Great Reset. So, I'm going to give you a little bit of definition of what that is. It's a pre-planned demolition of the old world order to usher in a new world order. In the new world order, you'll own nothing, and you'll be happy. And the U.S. won't be the world superpower. A handful of countries will dominate, and this is according to a World Economic Forum video that's being advertised across the UK and Europe. You can Google it. These globalists are using panic and fear generated by the coronavirus bioweapon to reshape our economy and laws, to destroy free market capitalism and reproductive services, parentheses, abortion, which he explains in his TED Talk. So Google TED Talk, look it up. British Royal Prince Charles, who favors population control. How about playing God? I mean, really, who are we to decide the population needs to be reduced? Narrates the Great Reset death plan, interjected, video as he admonished who loves life and gives life. The Great Reset represents death, not only to the human population, but also to businesses, small businesses, and capitalism as we know it. It seeks to destroy all the mom and pop businesses. What has happened as we've been shut down? Who's going out of business? The mom and pop businesses. Who's getting stronger? Big tech. The purpose of the New World Order is to create a one world economy, a one world government, and a one world religion. And Christians know that at the heart of the agenda is Satan's desire to rule the world. So think twice if you think Christianity is going to be that one world religion. Au contraire, in keeping with Marxism and global communism, Christians would be killed for continuing to worship Jesus. After all, Marx was a pagan Satanist. Now we see why the deep state has been pushing these things that we moms are fighting for, like CRT and BLM with the Marxist roots. Do you guys see that? Well, the Bible warns us about these things. So God knew that we were going to be facing the issues we're facing now. He is empowering us to push back, and there is hope. I want to give you some of his warning here. This is Revelation 18:23, and it's on the judgment of Babylon. The light of a lamp shall not shine in you anymore, and the voice of the bridegroom and bride shall not be heard in you anymore. For your merchants were the great men of the earth. For by your pharmakia, all the nations were deceived. Now that is the Greek word for sorcery there in that scripture. Pharmakia is the word used in the U.S. legislature, medical research journals, scientific journals, medical schools, national governments, public health authorities, medical fraternities, media, the business sector, ecclesiastic leaders, where the elected elites and the ecclesiastics have bonded together to vaccinate the world. Make no mistake, pharmakia is the demonic spirit, genetic bioweapons and synthetic human genome-altering vaccines to control the nations, or at least trying to. In October of 2020, there was a letter that President Donald Trump received. It went viral, and it was from Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano. Did anybody see that? Okay, I see some hands. I didn't quite understand it when I read it at that time. But in light of what's happened now, it is very eye-opening. Archbishop Vigano warned of the destructive Great Reset, already financed in several nations. The Great Reset, and I'm paraphrasing here, the Great Reset is the imposition of a health dictatorship hidden behind tempting promises of ensuring a universal income and canceling individual debt. So you know where it's going. Oh, you can be debt-free. Let the government pay off your debt. You'll own nothing and be happy, right? The price of these concessions from the international vaccination against COVID-19 and COVID-21. He wrote this in October of 2020. And here we are in 2021 with the Delta variant and the booster shot. And COVID-21 promoted by Bill Gates and the main pharmaceutical groups. Vigano further warns that the vaccination will be accompanied by the requirement of a health passport and a digital ID, with the consequent contact tracing of the population of the entire world, and that those who do not accept these measures will be confined in detention camps or placed under house arrest, and all their assets will be confiscated. Did you know that Bill Gates has created an embeddable cryptocurrency technology, patent 060606, that will be used to buy and sell? Write that down, Google it. I downloaded the patents off the official patent website. This is not conspiracy theory. Did you know that Bill Gates created an implantable microchip, and it's you to be a sheep, not think for yourself, not fight back, not preserve the rights of your children and your safety, and in the future, take the mark of the beast, okay? It's important that we do our research and that we know, because the Bible does warn us. The second beast forces all people, important and unimportant, rich and poor, free and slaves, to be marked on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that no one may buy or sell unless he has the mark, which is by declaring racism a public health crisis. Really? We're weaponizing agencies? What about our Constitution? Our Constitution is not to be superseded by agencies. Did you know that there's another bill called H.R. 6666, 4 6s? And it gives grants for COVID-19 tests, contact tracing, mobile units to go to our homes. Look, the Lord, when I was praying, he said, I want you to give these moms hope after you expose the evil, after you expose what's really going on. Let them know just how much authority they have. Because he is a big God, and he is bigger than any of this stuff going on in our country and going on globally. The God in you is more powerful than the enemy. And when we understand our rightful place of authority in him, and we stand up and we go to these board meetings and we fight back, God in us will push back the powers of darkness. Have you ever heard the story in the Bible about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Okay, so we know that Babylon has always been about deceiving the nations, right? Well, they were in the province of Babylon, they were the administrators. And in Daniel 3, the story goes that the king had issued a decree, okay? You can liken it to a lot of things that we have been told we're going to do. King Nebuchadnezzar was so angry that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego didn't obey his command that he said, heat it up 7 times greater. And then he called valiant warriors to take them to the flame. The valiant warriors died because the flames were so hot they licked them and killed them. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were tied up, thrown into that furnace. What does God do? Okay, right now, many of you may feel like you're in that furnace because you're fighting. You're going, how in the world am I going to push this back? But who shows up in the fire with you? Who was the 4th man in the fire? Yes, he was. And what were they doing? Were they rolling around tied up? They were protected and loosed. They were free in the fire. So you got to get a spiritual image of yourself. No matter how hard you're fighting, no matter what you're up against, God is with you and you are free in Christ Jesus. Now, the people that accused them, the Chaldeans, if I'm saying that right, all of you are going to have accusers. They're going to try and throw you in the furnace pit. You know, the danger in this, as the enemy has been trying to deceive us and divide us, that's always his MO. So when I hear Brittany talking about the fact that these people are coming against her, they're, you're always going to have the accusers. And she has stood up and she's like, the Lord is my source. And she doesn't talk like that. But she's walking in that power. And she has taken dominion because God gave it to her. And when we realize that we're really protected, fear has to go. So I want to encourage you to refuse to worship the image. No matter what's before you, don't succumb to other little things that are trying to pull you away. You do what your God told you to do. You stand up for the protection of your children. If you know it's right, I guarantee you there's a myriad of other moms that will join with you and lock arms, and they'll fight with you. So what happened after they came out of the fire? You know, the king, Nebuchadnezzar, is looking in the fire, and he's astounded. They're moving around. There's 4 of them. So what does he do? You know, I was praying to God, and I'm like, yeah, God, that means he's going to promote the moms. He said, this isn't about promoting the moms. He said, this is about promoting me. I said, yes, sir. What does he do? The king says, therefore, I make a decree that any people, nation, or tongue that speaks anything offensive against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be torn limb from limb, and their houses reduced to a rubbish heap. Inasmuch as there is no other God who is able to deliver in this way. I want to tell you that your obedience to fight for your God-given rights in America will cause others to recognize the God who blessed our founding fathers, whose civil covenants formed the bedrock for all of our constitutions. It will force them to turn back to him instead of turning upon each other. So stand up with me. Stand up with me. We're going to end this thing in prayer. You're already taking action. You know where to go. So I want to bless you. So if you will, agree with me in prayer. Lord, I thank you for this group of moms. I thank you for the speakers that you sent here, the legislators who serve you as missionaries, those who have resources for us. Lord, I ask that you continue to bless them, that you would go with them, that you would empower every mom here, that you would give her the resources she needs in the midst of the fire. Now, Lord, you have given each mom here authority. If they are in you, you are in them. So, Christ Jesus, who ever liveth in me to make intercession on behalf of the saints, ever liveth in all of us who are born again. We call upon you now. We take authority over every power of evil, any manner of evil. And we send the host of heaven to these demonic platforms that have been set up to ensnare our children and to steal them from us. We say right now, CRT, BLM, every Marxist ideology that is trying to steal the mind and the freedom of our children, be disintegrated now in the name of Jesus. I ask you to empower these women, every one of you. If you want empowerment, raise your hands right now. God, you see the hands that are raised. Empower these women to take dominion, to take back the freedoms and the liberties that many of our founding fathers and our forefathers died for. Take them back. Give them that power and that authority, Lord. Direct them. Give them divine wisdom and insight to see where to walk next, where to go, what they're called to do, what office to run for, when to go, the exact right timing in the name of Jesus. Raise them up like never before. Fill their mouths. Take all the fear and turn it to joy in knowing that you have overcome. The Lord says, cheer up, for I have overcome the world. God is with you, so who can be against you? Right now, I want you to call out the names of your children. Lord, we lift up to you and call out your children's names. I call out Davis, Salem, Lucas, Lord. And I thank you for them. Send the angels to be with them, to protect their minds, their wills, and their emotions. Be with them, God. Enable us as moms to raise them in the fear and admonition of Jesus Christ. We thank you that you have brought us here today, that you have empowered us, and you will give us success wherever we are sent. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Testing. Okay. Oh, Donica, thank you for that beautiful prayer. I just have a 3-minute wrap up, everyone. What an educational day it's been. I hope it's been edifying for you. It's been a little shocking. It's been a little sobering. But thank you so much, beautiful Pastor Wins and Liz and everyone, this beautiful chapel that was here. And Salem, your music, honey, that song that she wrote and performed, as you were singing and allowed us to sing along with you, I felt the Spirit of the Lord. My eyes welled up with tears. God is going to use you in magnificent ways, honey. Thank you so much for being here today and for all that beautiful patriotic music that was performed. My dear mamas and families, Moms for America is here for you. Get out your little cards. If there is a 1, 2, or 3, there are some goodies to be had on your card on the back table there. Please sign up for these online cottage meetings. I'll teach some of them. Me and my husband will teach some of them starting October 6th, when the evening class will start next week. As you begin to learn these principles of freedom and liberty and the stories and miracles of America and the Constitution, you will be anchored in hope. And you will know that it is God who we look to for our freedoms, not Washington, D.C., not the President of the United States. It is God who will give us deliverance and healing. You keep that family close. You make family time a high priority. You have some sort of little family devotional. You keep them close. My one boy, who's the basketball player, said, "Mom, I really didn't sleep through those morning devotionals, even if my eyes were closed." And I know that because when I watch him on TV, he's the only one on the court before the game when the national anthem is being played with his hand on his heart, and it's because he learned that in the home. Your fruits will be manifested in different ways, so just teach them and give it back to God. Continue to study the Constitution. Those principles will allow you to speak with great authority, not emotionalism, but on a principle, because principle, when you speak principle, it is universal and it is eternal and it will transcend parties and politics. And as you do those things, God will put it on your heart what you should do. Should you run for office? Should you show up at the school board? Should you start a cottage meeting? Should you just sign up for a little online cottage meeting? Should you maybe just begin to make some changes within the four walls of your home? Maybe start to pray with your children. Start to study a little Bible story every night or morning before you get them off. Whatever whatever it will do, it will look a little bit different for each one of you, but as you will, God will direct you to be a part of the solution, and your fear will be transformed to faith, and your apathy will turn to resolve, and your despair will be converted to hope, and you will be an anchor to your family and your communities, and you will become a mighty force in this battle to save America, and together we will justify the heavens to intervene and heal our land. So here we are, Lord. Send us. May God go with you as you do so, and may God bless America. Thank you so much for joining us today. Take care.